Chapter 230. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Early in the morning, Ji Tianqing ended his 3-day seclusion and walked out of the secret room. After 3 days of bitter cultivation, he had tempered another acupoint and his strength had increased a bit. On the table in the room was a set of white robes that Han Qiusheng had sent over in advance. Ji Tianqing washed up and changed into a set of white robes before walking out of the room and rushing towards the crimson firmament peak. Today was the day of the apprenticeship ceremony. From today onwards, he was an inner disciple and also the sect master's personal disciple. Ji Tianqing wore a set of white robes and walked out of the Tempest courtyard in a refreshed manner, causing the other disciples to be filled with envy. They were all hot-blooded youths. Who didn't yearn for a set of white robes, a 3-foot-tall peak, and a scene of traveling the world with a sword? Moreover, the azure robes of the Sky Pillar sect's outer disciples were somewhat ordinary and ugly. Only by wearing a set of white robes would one appear valiant and elegant, possessing the righteous aura of a disciple of a famous sect. Ji Tianqing walked down the Sky Pillar peak and rushed towards the crimson firmament peak. Along the way, countless outer disciples frequently glanced at him, staring at him as he walked far away. They were still discussing him endlessly. Everyone knew that today was the day of the apprenticeship ceremony and Ji Tianqing was about to soar into the sky. After reaching the crimson firmament peak, Ji Tianqing had just arrived at the Sky Pillar Hall when he was pulled away by the third elder. The third elder was a thin and benevolent old man with a stooped body. He was usually in charge of the sect's rituals, ceremonies, and other trivial matters. He brought Ji Tianqing to the side hall, and taught him the etiquette and rules of the apprenticeship ceremony, as well as the process of the apprenticeship ceremony. Although today's apprenticeship ceremony wasn't grand, it was very solemn. Everything had to be done according to the rules and etiquette. Ji Tianqing earnestly listened to the third elder's teachings and silently memorized many complicated matters. With his intelligence and memory, it wasn't difficult to remember these trivial matters. After an hour, the ceremony was about to begin. The third elder brought him into the Sky Pillar Hall. More than 30 people had already gathered in the hall. They were standing in 2 rows and talking in low voices. Ji Tianqing's gaze swept across the hall, and he recognized many people. There were more than 30 people present. Not only were there the 9 elders, but there was also the Grand Elder Xiang Wuji, a dozen higher-ranked deacons, and 5 elite disciples. The Sky Pillar sect originally had 6 elite disciples. One of them was Yan who wasn't present today. The 5 elite disciples included Yun Yao, Bai Wuchen, Hao Meng, and 2 other handsome young men. Ji Tianqing was no stranger to Bai Wuchen and Hao Meng, but he had never seen the 2 young men before. He couldn't help but pay more attention to them. The 2 young men were also very curious and concerned about him, silently observing him. However, due to the presence of the elders and deacons, the 2 young men did not greet Ji Tianqing, nor did they speak. However, Ji Tianqing could vaguely feel that the 2 young men were calm and indifferent on the surface, but in fact, they harbored hostility toward him. He had never met them before, and there was no enmity between them. However, they harbored hostility toward him. He wasn't surprised or puzzled. As early as 3 days ago, when Chu Tianxing announced that he wanted to accept him as a disciple, he had already expected this result. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he was now the target of public criticism. However, Ji Tianqing didn't care about other people's gazes and opinions. He remembered what Yun Yao had said that day and would act according to it. Not long after, Sect Master Chu Tianxing entered the hall. The people who were participating in the apprenticeship ceremony had finally arrived. When the time came, the third elder announced the official start of the apprenticeship ceremony. In the north of the Sky Pillar Hall, a portrait of the mountain-splitting ancestor was carved on the wall. On both sides of the portrait were 2 lines of vigorous and powerful words. On the left was, supporting the heavens and splitting the mountains, the stars of the heavens protect me and prosper for all eternity. On the right was, dominating the ancient realm, the endless mountains and rivers formed their own hegemony for all eternity. There were also 4 domineering words on the horizontal lintel, conquering all eternity. An altar had already been set up below the portrait of the mountain-splitting ancestor. On the altar were gemstones, lamps, bronze incense burners, and the tablets of the sect masters. The third elder stood beside the altar with a solemn expression. His voice was as loud as a bell as he gave a long speech. These long speeches were mainly to praise the great achievements of the mountain-splitting ancestor, as well as the achievements of the previous sect masters. After the speech, the third elder loudly announced that everyone would pay their respects to the ancestor and the previous sect masters. Everyone in the hall had already lined up neatly. Chu Tianxing and Xiang Wuji stood at the front. The 9 elders stood behind them, followed by the deacons and elite disciples. Everyone's expressions were solemn as they knelt and paid their respects to the ancestor's statue. They paid their respects to the ancestor and the previous sect masters. When this was over, the third elder held up a book and read out a long speech. The meaning of these words was that the previous sect masters had to be cautious and conscientious, and the disciples had to cultivate diligently in order for the sect to flourish. Thus, the current sect master wanted to recruit new talents for the sky-bearing sect and recruit a disciple to be his personal disciple. Ji Tianqing followed the rules of the ceremony. He gave a speech step by step, bowed, and kowtowed to the ancestor. This solemn and grand apprenticeship ceremony lasted for an entire 2 hours. It wasn't until Ji Tianqing bowed to Chu Tianxing and offered him tea that the third elder loudly announced that the ceremony was complete. From this moment on, Ji Tianxing was sect master Chu Tianxing's personal disciple. The elders and deacons all cupped their hands and congratulated Chu Tianxing. Chu Tianxing smiled and nodded in response to everyone's congratulations. Of course, he didn't forget to take out a black jade thumb ring from his interspatial ring and give it to Ji Tianxing. Disciple Tianxing, this is a gift from Master to you. I hope that you will diligently cultivate in the future and strive hard. Don't lose face for Master. Ji Tianxing took the black jade thumb ring and solemnly accepted it. He bowed and thanked, Sect Master, please rest assured. This disciple will definitely not disappoint Master. Chu Tianxing smiled and nodded, revealing a gratified expression. Following that, the first elder also took out a gift and gave it to Ji Tianxing in front of everyone, congratulating him. The first elder had an extremely good impression of Ji Tianxing, so this gift was also priceless. There were actually 10 top-grade profound level pills and 10 spirit stones. With the first elder taking the lead, the second elder, the third elder, and the others also took out the gifts they had prepared and took turns to give them to Ji Tianxing. The gifts given by the elders were naturally extraordinary. They were all very precious treasures. This was also the usual practice of the Sky Pillar sect. It was a joyous occasion for the sect master to accept a personal disciple. Of course, the elders had to express their congratulations and give some gifts and resources to express their congratulations and encouragement. Not only that, even a few deacons who were familiar with Ji Tianxing also gave him congratulatory gifts. Ji Tianxing accepted the gifts from everyone and bowed with a smile to express his gratitude. Yun Yao saw his face full of smiles as he happily accepted the gifts, and a smile flashed in her eyes. Chapter 231. The gifts from the elders and deacons were all put into Ji Tianxing's spatial ring. In the next year, he didn't have to worry about cultivation resources. Most of the gifts given by the elders and deacons were pills and materials, as well as a small number of spirit stones. Ji Tianxing remembered all of these clearly and could calculate the approximate amount and value. Only the gift that sect leader Chu Tianxing gave him was stored in the black jade ring. He didn't know what kind of treasure it was. There were many people in the hall, and Ji Tianxing couldn't check the things in the ring in public. But he could guess that the gift that sect leader Chu Tianxing personally gave him must be very valuable, and definitely surpassed the gifts given by the elders. Unknowingly, a quarter of an hour passed. The elders and deacons all gave their gifts, and it was the turn of the elite disciples. Interestingly, other than Yun Yao congratulating Ji Tianqing and giving him a gift, the other disciples didn't say anything. Bai Wuqian, Hao Meng, and the two young elite disciples only cupped their hands towards Ji Tianqing and congratulated him verbally. When this scene landed in the eyes of the sect leader and the elders, everyone immediately understood the attitude of the elite disciples. They were obviously a little repulsed by Ji Tianqing, this new noble. But this was also understandable. The elders and deacons present didn't say anything and pretended not to see anything. It looked like the apprenticeship ceremony was about to end. At this moment, the disciple guarding the entrance of the hall suddenly walked into the hall and reported loudly, reporting to sect leader, the Heart Moon sect's great elder requests an audience. When everyone in the hall heard the messenger disciple's report, they immediately quietened down. Chu Tianqing seemed to have expected that the Heart Moon sect's elder would come. He nodded slightly and said, "Please." The messenger disciple turned and walked out of the hall to the entrance of the hall to pass on the order. A moment later, a graceful woman wearing a purple robe walked into the hall. She was the Heart Moon sect's elder, Xian Xian's aunt, and Shulan's master. Arriving at the main hall, she bowed to Chu Tianqing and said in a gentle voice, "Heart Moon sect's great elder, Junyi, greets sect leader Chu. I heard that today is the celebration of sect leader Chu accepting a personal disciple. Junyi is here to congratulate sect leader Chu." Chu Tianqing nodded slightly and said with a smile, "Elder Junyi is considerate." The Sky-bearing sect and the Heart Moon sect had been on good terms for generations, and the two sects were allies. Junyi had entered the Sky-bearing sect many times before, so the elders present were not unfamiliar with her. After everyone exchanged a few pleasantries, Junyi got down to business. She cupped her hands and bowed. With a solemn expression, she said, "Sect leader Chu, Junyi's visit today is mainly to apologize to sect leader Chu. Previously, Junyi sent her disciple, Shulan, to deliver medicine to your sect. Who would have thought that she would be used by the Devil Princess? The Devil Princess possessed Shulan's body and sneaked into your sect. She almost caused a disaster." After hearing about this matter, Junyi and our sect leader felt deeply guilty. Therefore, Junyi specially came to apologize to sect leader Chu in person. Chu Tianqing nodded. With a calm expression, he said, "Elder Junyi is considerate. Send my regards to your sect leader. Regarding the matter of Shulan being possessed by the Devil Princess, you can't blame your sect's disciple. You can only blame the Devil Princess for being treacherous and cunning." Fortunately, this sect leader detected the abnormality in time and resolved the disaster. "Elder Junyi, please don't blame yourself. In the future, our sect and your sect should be more vigilant and guard against the Devil Princess. Junyi will definitely pass on sect leader Chu's words." Junyi bowed and continued, "Junyi came to visit. The second thing is to take away the body of our sect's disciple, Shulan. This disciple usually respected her master and was diligent. She was also Junyi's proud disciple. It's a pity that she suffered such a disaster and lost her life. It could be considered that she deserved this disaster. Junyi is ashamed of this disciple. I only want to bring her body back to our sect and bury her in peace." Towards her request, Chu Tianqing naturally nodded and agreed. "Elder Junyi is so considerate of your disciple. You are really benevolent. That Shulan's body will be temporarily placed in the secret room by Xian Xian. Later, Elder Junyi can go and find Xian Xian to discuss this matter. Thank you, sect leader Chu, for fulfilling my wish." Junyi cupped her hands again and said with a calm expression, "Junyi came today for the third thing to congratulate sect leader Chu on your great joy. When our sect leader heard the news, he specially ordered Junyi to come and congratulate you and present a small gift. I hope sect leader Chu will kindly accept it." After speaking, Junyi took out a spiritual jade ring and presented it to Chu Tianqing. The gift given by the Heart Moon Sex Elder was naturally priceless and very precious. Chu Tianxing didn't look at the things in the ring. He directly accepted the spiritual jade ring and said with a smile, "Thank you for your sect leader's gift. This sect leader will definitely come and thank you." Junyi and Ji Tianxing exchanged some pleasantries. Then, she took out 2 small white jade bottles and 10 dazzling spiritual stones and gave them to Ji Tianxing. "Congratulations, martial nephew, for finding a good teacher. From now on, you will have a bright future." Ji Tianxing was a little surprised. He didn't expect that Junyi would come to visit Chu Tianxing and even prepare a gift for him. He hurriedly accepted the jade bottle and spiritual stones that contained the elixirs. He smiled and bowed to Junyi to thank her. After he accepted the gift, Junyi then bowed to Chu Tianxing and bid farewell. "Junyi's mission for this trip has been completed. But before I bid farewell, Junyi still has to ask sect leader Chu on behalf of our sect leader. The 8th sect meeting in 10 days will be held at Stellar Peak as usual. May I ask if sect leader Chu will attend at that time?" Chu Tianxing frowned slightly and thought for a moment. Then, he smiled and nodded. "At that time, if I don't attend personally, I will definitely send someone to represent me." Junyi nodded and cupped her hands. Junyi will definitely pass on sect leader Chu's words. "Goodbye. Take care, Elder Junyi." Chu Tianxing stood up and cupped his hands. He watched Junyi turn and leave the hall. Not long after, the apprenticeship ceremony was announced to end. All the elders, deacons, and elite disciples left the towering sky hall one after another. Chu Tianxing said a few words to Ji Tianxing before he also walked out of the hall. Only Ji Tianxing and Xiang Wuji were left in the hall. Xiang Wuji was looking at him with a smile. There was a hint of playfulness in his eyes. Ji Tianxing saw his strange expression and asked with a smile, "Senior Xiang, do you have any advice for this disciple?" Xiang Wuji grinned and said in a mocking tone, "Kid, everyone gave you a gift, but I didn't express anything. Are you very disappointed?" Ji Tianxing was startled for a moment. He smiled and said, I dare not. Senior Xiang has already taken great care of this disciple. How could this disciple dare to ask for more? Humph. Hypocrite. Xiang Wuji rolled his eyes at him. Chapter 232. Ji Tianxing followed Xiang Wuji to the Grand Peace Palace. He had thought that Xiang Wuji would give him some precious spirit pills and spirit fruits, or teach him some secret arts. Unexpectedly, Xiang Wuji didn't give him anything. Instead, he asked for the little ice fox and the little black dragon. Ji Tianxing vaguely guessed his intention, so he gave Qian Yu and the black dragon sword to him. Xiang Wuji told him to wait in the main hall, then took Qian Yu and the black dragon sword into the secret room. Ji Tianxing waited patiently in the main hall. He also checked the treasures in the space ring and the gifts he had received today. He took out the black jade ring that sect leader Chu Tianxing had given him. After studying it for a while, he opened the black jade ring and saw the treasures in the ring. There were a total of 20 spirit stones shining with multicolored light, and more than a dozen small white jade bottles, which contained all kinds of spirit pills for cultivation and healing. In addition, there were several secret arts in the black jade ring, all of which were black-level upper-class arts. There were a total of 4 secret arts. One was an inner strength mental cultivation method, one was a sword Dao secret art, one was a Qigong body art, and one was a body refining secret art. Any cultivation method was priceless. The spirit stones and spirit dawn in the jade bottles were also very valuable. They were very precious treasures. Ji Tianxing roughly estimated that this gift from sect leader Chu Tianxing couldn't be bought even with hundreds of millions of taels of silver in the mortal world. After all, the world of martial arts was different from the mortal kingdoms. The exchanges between martial artists were all done by bartering or using medicinal pills and spirit stones as currency to conduct transactions. Gold and silver could only be used in the mortal kingdoms. Ji Tianqing put all the treasures in the black jade ring into the space ring. The corner of his mouth curled up into a smile as he thought to himself, Headmaster's gift is indeed extraordinary. He is also very thoughtful. He has basically prepared everything I need. It's a pity that I need to practice the sword Dao for the inner strength mental cultivation method, the flying star sword technique for the sword Dao cultivation method, and the shadowless steps for the Qinggong secret art. I can't even use the body refinement secret technique that the sect master gave me. The Dao of the sword heart is the most miraculous body refinement secret technique. Ever since he started cultivating the way of the sword heart, he had first condensed the sword embryo, then continuously refined his sword veins and aperture points, causing his body's toughness and strength to far surpass that of other warriors in the same realm. As a result, he couldn't use the 4 cultivation methods that sect master Chu Tianqing had given him. It was a pity. An hour later, Ji Tianqing checked all the treasures in the interspatial ring. He now had more than 100 spirit stones, more than 300 profound-level high-grade spirit pills, and more than a dozen sets of alchemy in artifact forging materials. These cultivation resources were enough for him to use for the next year. Ji Tianqing waited patiently for another 2 hours before Xiang Wuji finally walked out of the secret room and came to the main hall. Xiang Wuji's face was calm. There was nothing wrong with him, but there was a hint of tiredness in his eyes. He calmly said to Ji Tianqing, "Kid, I'm a little tired. I'm going to rest first. Wait another hour, then you can go to the secret room and leave with those 2 little fellows." Ji Tianqing hurriedly bowed in thanks and respectfully sent Xiang Wuji off. An hour later, he entered the secret room, his heart filled with doubt. He saw Qian Yu and the little black dragon lying on the ground, seemingly asleep. Qian Yu and the little black dragon had clearly grown several times larger. Their bodies flickered with icy blue and blazing white light, exuding powerful yuan qi fluctuations. In the past, Qian Yu's body had been the size of a kitten, but now it was more than 3 meters long. The little black dragon had only been 3 meters long before, but now it was around 6 meters long. Its body had doubled. Seeing this scene, Ji Tianqing immediately understood what was going on and felt a little emotional. As expected, I guessed correctly. Senior Xiang's gift to me was to help Qian Yu and the little black dragon recover their strength. Although Senior Xiang has a strange temper and is strict and demanding, he has always taken good care of me. Not long after, Qian Yu and the little black dragon woke up. When they saw Ji Tianqing, they excitedly surrounded him. "Old Ji, I've finally recovered 30% of my strength. Old man Xiang is truly amazing. Old Ji, Senior Xiang has imparted his martial arts to us and helped me recover 30% of my martial arts." Ji Tianqing looked at Qian Yu and the little black dragon's excited expressions and couldn't help but smile. The reason you were able to recover so quickly was all thanks to Senior Xiang's help. In the future, you must treat him with a little more respect, understood? Qian Yu and the little black dragon nodded repeatedly, excitedly flying around the secret room. Now, with Ji Tianqing's status, he could bring Qian Yu and the little black dragon with him. There was no need to hide them any longer. Seeing that Qian Yu and the little black dragon were too large, Ji Tianqing had them shrink their bodies. The little black dragon's body flashed, and with a whoosh, it transformed into the black dragon sword. Qian Yu's body flashed with an icy blue light, and it immediately shrank to the size of a kitten. Its large clear eyes looked at Ji Tianqing with a pitiful expression as it begged, "Old Ji, can I not enter the brocade pouch? You are now the sect master's personal disciple. Even if you bring me around the Sky Pillar sect, you won't violate the sect's rules. I've been in the Sky Pillar sect for so long, but I still haven't seen the sect's scenery." Ji Tianqing nodded and smiled in agreement. He put the black dragon sword into his space ring and brought Qian Yu out of the secret room, leaving the Great Peace Palace. Xianyu flapped its wings and flew beside him, curiously looking around and occasionally asking him a few questions. It had followed Ji Tianqing into the sect for so long, but this was the first time it had appeared in the open. Of course, it was excited and excited. It flew up and down, chattering non-stop all the way. After Ji Tianqing left the Great Peace Palace, he went to the Scarlet Firmament Peak and entered the palace where Sect Master Chu Tianqing lived. Before the apprenticeship ceremony ended, Chu Tianqing had told him that he had other matters to attend to. Ji Tianqing entered the palace and waited in the study for a moment before Chu Tianqing rushed over. "Greetings, Sect Master." Ji Tianqing quickly bowed. Chu Tianqing sat down in an armchair and slightly nodded, "Rise. Tianqing, the apprenticeship ceremony is over. Tomorrow, you will enter the inner sect and report to the inner sect elders. You will be leaving the outer sect storm courtyard, so of course you will have to change your residence. I've already arranged everything for you. A small courtyard will be vacated in the inner sect, and it will be renamed the Sky Conduct Court. From now on, the Tianqing courtyard will be your residence and also your private territory. Master has arranged a maid and 2 odd job disciples for you to take care of the Tianqing courtyard as well as your daily life." Chu Tianqing's expression was calm and his tone was kind. Ji Tianqing silently listened. After he finished speaking, he smiled and bowed in thanks. Chapter 233. Ji Tianqing had been in the sect for 3 months and was very familiar with the rules of the Sky Pillar sect. He knew that the treatment of ordinary inner sect disciples was basically the same as that of the Wind Cloud courtyard. Everyone had a room equipped with a secret room for cultivation. Only elite disciples were qualified to be rewarded with a courtyard by the sect. Under normal circumstances, the residence would be named after the disciple's name or nickname. The courtyard was the territory of the elite disciples. Not only were the facilities more complete, but it was also equipped with maids and odd job disciples. Ji Tianqing received the same treatment as by Wuxia, Hao Meng, and the 2 young elites. Of course, many of the deacons in the Sky Pillar sect also received the same treatment. Among everyone, the chief disciple, Yun Yao, received the best treatment and had the highest status. She didn't live in the inner sect, but on the Scarlet Firmament Peak. She had a palace that belonged to her called the White Cloud Hall. This level of treatment was equivalent to that of the 9 elders of the Sky Pillar sect. After bidding farewell to Chu Tianqing, Ji Tianqing left the Scarlet Firmament Peak and returned to the inner sect of the Sky Pillar Peak. Above the mountainside of the Sky Pillar Peak, including the peak, there were dozens of palaces and dozens of courtyards of various sizes. These were the territories of the inner sect. The elders and deacons of the inner sect, as well as the treasury of the inner sect, were all located on the peak of the mountain. Ji Tianqing shuttled through the palaces on the peak of the mountain. After searching for half an hour, he finally found the Tianqing courtyard that belonged to him. This small courtyard was close to the cliff of the back mountain. The courtyard walls were surrounded by towering trees, and the environment was very quiet and elegant. The small courtyard was square in shape, with an area of only 50 square meters and only a dozen rooms. However, although the courtyard was small, it was exquisite and elegant. It had everything that should be there. An ancient wooden plaque hung on the lintel of the gate with the words Tianqing Courtyard written on it. 2 odd job disciples and a maid had already cleaned the courtyard and rooms and were waiting for Ji Tianqing to move in. When Ji Tianqing entered the courtyard, the 2 odd job disciples and the young maid bowed in unison and respectfully called him Senior Marshal Brother Ji. Ji Tianqing smiled slightly and nodded, indicating that they shouldn't be so courteous. He walked around the courtyard and saw an ancient tree in the courtyard. Under the tree, there were stone benches and stone tables. There were also a few nursery plots in the corner of the courtyard that could be used to plant and cultivate medicinal herbs. The main hall, which faced the entrance, was spacious, bright, and magnificent. Next to it were the bedroom and study. The 2 rows of rooms on the left and right of the courtyard were also clean and cozy. In addition, in the row of houses on the left, there was a practice room and a pill room. Ji Tianqing looked around and was very satisfied with this small courtyard. After familiarizing himself with the environment of Tianqing courtyard, he went to his room to rest. Behind the bookshelf in his bedroom was a secret door that was connected to a secret room. The floor and walls of the secret room were engraved with array patterns and symbols. The array formation in this chamber was clearly of a much higher level than the one in the Tempest courtyard. Ji Tianqing could clearly sense that the concentration of heaven and earth spirit qi in this room was at least 3 to 5 times higher than the one in the Tempest courtyard. If he cultivated in this secret room, the results would naturally be better and his strength would increase faster. That night, Ji Tianqing rested in the Tianqing courtyard. His heart was full of self-satisfaction and was full of expectations for the future. The next morning, he followed Chu Tianqing's instructions and went to report to the inner sect elder. Although he was the head's disciple, head Chu Tianqing wouldn't instruct and teach him every day. Most of the time, he still had to be like other inner sect disciples and receive instruction from the inner sect deacons. Of course, he had more freedom than ordinary inner sect disciples. He could choose whether or not to listen to classes and study without being disturbed or punished. The inner sect elder's name was Yi Hong. He was a tall and thin old man with a dark face and a dignified and austere temperament. Ji Tianqing didn't have any contact with this elder Yi Hong before. They only met at the apprenticeship ceremony yesterday. At that time, Elder Yi Hong also gave him a congratulatory gift and said a few words of congratulations and encouragement. Ji Tianqing met Elder Yi Hong in the inner sect's main hall. Yi Hong's reaction was dull. He officially registered him and gave him the inner sect disciples' robes and monthly resources. Then, he turned and left the main hall. Then, the inner sect deacon Feng Xiao introduced him to the inner sect in detail, as well as the daily learning and training courses. There were about 100 inner sect disciples. All of them had the strength of the mystic comprehending realm. Whether it was the inner sect cultivation method or the martial arts method, it had already been fixed. These disciples didn't need to listen to classes every day. Most of the time, they cultivated in seclusion. Only when they encountered problems or bottlenecks, would they ask the deacons and elders for help. After Feng Xiao introduced the situation of the inner sect, he told Ji Tianqing one more thing in a serious tone. Ji Tianqing, you have received the head's favor and have been directly promoted to the inner sect. To you, this is both an honor and a burden. I have a piece of news to tell you. Unfortunately, next month is the inner sect's annual Heaven List tournament. Every year at this time, hundreds of inner sect disciples will participate in the tournament to compete for a place on the Heaven List. The Heaven List ranking is very important. It determines the amount of resources, status, and future martial arts prospects of the inner sect disciples. At this point, Feng Xiao didn't continue. As an inner sect deacon, he had kindly reminded Ji Tianqing. He had already done his duty. Ji Tianqing nodded calmly and thanked Feng Xiao. Then, he bid farewell to Feng Xiao and returned to Tianqing's courtyard. He had just returned to his room when a maidservant came in to report the news. Senior brother Ji, a senior brother named Bai is here to visit you. He is waiting for you at the gate. Ji Tianqing immediately raised his eyebrows and a trace of doubt flashed in his eyes. A senior brother named Bai is here to visit me. Could it be Bai Wuchen? He left the room and walked to the gate. As expected, he saw Bai Wuchen standing outside with a cold and indifferent expression. What can I do for you, senior brother Bai? Ji Tianqing looked at him expressionlessly and asked calmly. Bai Wuchen turned around and stared at him. His lips curled into a playful smile. He, junior brother Ji, you are so proud of yourself these days. You are in high spirits. Hearing this, Ji Tianqing knew that he was not here with good intentions. He couldn't help but frown. Senior brother Bai, what do you mean? The corner of Bai Wuchen's mouth twitched, and he said in a playful tone, "I'm here to give you a kind reminder. Don't get carried away. The inner sect is different from the outer sect. There are no weaklings in the inner sect. With your current strength, you are only at the bottom of the inner sect. Although you have made great contributions to the sect and were accepted as a disciple by the sect leader, you are lucky. That's just because you're lucky and the sect leader is kind enough to take care of you and reward you on purpose. Don't forget your status. Don't think that just because you are the sect leader's disciple, you can be compared to the elites in the sect." Chapter 234. Ji Tianqing had already expected Bai Wuchen to come with ill intentions. However, he did not expect Bai Wuchen to be so direct. He immediately frowned, and the corner of his mouth curled up into a sneer. "Hee, it seems like Senior Brother Bai is very displeased and angry that I was accepted as a pro-disciple by the sect leader. What? Am I blocking Senior Brother Bai's path? Or did I steal Senior Brother Bai's position?" Ji Tianqing looked askance at Bai Wuchen, his tone full of mockery. Bai Wuchen was infuriated, but he maintained a smirk on his face. "You? What right do you have to block my path and steal my position?" Ji Tianqing was not to be outdone. "Hee, since Senior Brother Bai is so confident and hostile towards me, why don't you pull me down from my position? If you don't have the ability to remove my position as the sect leader's disciple, then shut up and don't waste your breath on me." Since the day Bai Wuchen met Ji Tianqing, he had been looking down on Ji Tianqing with a condescending attitude. In his eyes, Ji Tianqing was just a nobody from a small country. He was not worth mentioning and did not deserve to be his opponent. In just a few short months, Ji Tianqing's status was on par with his. Moreover, Ji Tianqing dared to say such words in front of him without fear or respect. How could Bai Wuchen not fly into a rage out of humiliation? Good. Good. Junior Brother Ji, you're really tough. You're really arrogant. Bai Wuchen was so angry that he laughed. His face was cold as he sneered. "If that's the case, I'd like to see how long you can be tough. Next month is the annual Heaven Board tournament. As the sect leader's pro-disciple, if you can't even enter the top 30 on the Heaven Board, I'd like to see if you still have the face to stay in the inner court." At this point, he added in a mocking tone, "Oh right, I have to remind you that the weakest among the top 30 disciples on the Heaven Leaderboard is at the 7th level of the Mystic Comprehending stage. You're only at Tongxian Realm first tier. By then, not only will you embarrass yourself and be mocked by the other disciples, you'll also implicate the sect leader's reputation." Ji Tianqing looked at him coldly. His lips curled into a sneer, and he was about to retort. At this moment, the little ice fox, Thousand Moon, flew out of the courtyard and landed beside Ji Tianqing. Qian Yu flapped her wings and hovered in the air beside Ji Tianqing. He glared at Bai Wuchen and scolded him, "You're such a joke. What does old Ji's cultivation level and ranking on the heaven roll have to do with you? Our family's old Ji has always kept a low profile. Even if he has the strength, he would never flaunt it. He would never deliberately slander or provoke others. You're so annoying. You look like a decent person, but you're full of despicable and filthy thoughts. How dare you come to Tianqing's courtyard and make a scene? Who do you think you are?" Qian Yu scolded him like a machine gun, stunning Bai Wuchen on the spot. He glared at Qian Yu with an ashen face and muttered subconsciously, "What the hell is this?" Qian Yu became even angrier. She scolded him fiercely, "You're the damn thing. No, you're not a thing. You don't even know me, and you still have the nerve to call yourself an elite genius? You ignorant, blind bastard." Bai Wuchen was once again scolded by Qian Yu. He did not even have the chance to talk back. No matter how shrewd and well-mannered he was, he could not help but be so angry that his face turned ashen. His eyes were burning with rage. "You damned fox! Aren't you just a demonic beast? How dare you scold me? You're courting death. Bai Wuqian cursed in a menacing tone. His face was full of murderous intent, and he was about to teach Qian Yu a lesson. Ji Tianqing immediately shouted, Bai Wuqian. This is my spiritual beast pet. If you dare lay a hand on it, I'll make you regret it. Bai Wuqian suddenly came to his senses and calmed down. He knew very well that if he came to Tianqing's courtyard and provoked Ji Tianqing, he would be punished by the faction if a fight broke out. When he was punished by the faction, not only would he be laughed at by the other two elite geniuses, but he would also be ridiculed by Ji Tianqing. Thinking of this, he had no choice but to calm down. He glared at Qian Yu and Ji Tianqing fiercely and growled, Ji Tianqing. I'm not going to stoop to your level today. Just you wait. Qian Yu curled her lips in disdain and sneered mockingly, is there something wrong with your brain? You came to Tianqing's courtyard to provoke Ji Tianqing, and now you want to admit defeat? Do you have nothing better to do? Why are you asking for a slap in the face? At this point, Qian Yu put on a compassionate expression and said in a pitying tone, "Ai. Look at your jealous and irritable face. You're so pitiful. Let me remind you, don't come to Tianqing's courtyard to look for trouble. Otherwise, you'll be so angry that your face will turn green and you'll turn into a green turtle, you little beast." Bai Wuqian's face was livid, and his eyes were filled with anger. He had never expected that not only Ji Tianqing would mock him, but even Ji Tianqing's spiritual beast pet would be so arrogant and dare to insult him to his face. This was something that had never happened before. Even the other two elite geniuses would not dare to insult him to his face. Bai Wuqian had always been a gloomy person and would not show his emotions easily. But now, he was enraged by Qian Yu. Qian Yu pointed at his face with her little paw and said sympathetically, "Look, your face is green, isn't it? Had his liver turned green as well? I told you so." Sigh. Xiao Bai, you're still young. Take care of yourself. Qian Yu put on a serious look as if she was educating the younger generation. Bai Wuqian's handsome face was contorted with anger, but he could not do anything about it. All he could do was growl coldly. Ji Tianqing. I'll remember this. He knew that he was no match for Qian Yu in a verbal battle, and he could not vent his anger by attacking Ji Tianqing and Qian Yu. With that, he stormed out of Tianqing's courtyard in a huff. Qian Yu looked at Bai Wuqian's back with disdain and muttered, "What kind of bullshit elite genius is this? How dare he bully Ji Tianqing? Humph. The next time I see you, I'll curse your ancestors until they jump out of their coffins." Ji Tianqing tilted his head and looked at Qian Yu with a strange smile. "Qian Yu, where did you learn to insult people? Look at how angry Bai Wuqian is. I bet he'll vomit 3 buckets of blood when he gets back." Ha ha ha. Qian Yu raised her head proudly and said, "I was born with the talent to insult people. No one can envy me." Chapter 235. Ji Tianqing teased Qian Yu for a bit before taking it back to his room. For the next 2 days, no one came to the Tianqing courtyard to disturb Ji Tianqing. He had been cultivating in seclusion in his secret room, using the spirit stones and spirit pills he had obtained to quickly temper his acupoints and increase his strength. Next month was the Heaven Roll tournament. He had to increase his strength as much as possible in order to obtain a good ranking in the tournament. Ji Tianqing was cultivating in seclusion. The little black dragon had turned into the black dragon sword and was obediently lying in the space ring. Only Qian Yu was wandering around the Tianqing courtyard, having a lot of fun every day. 2 days had passed, and it had already studied every corner of the Skyline Court. It was already bored. On the morning of the 3rd day, it flew around the Tianqing courtyard once before swaggering out of the gate and strolling outside. Sigh, old Ji is cultivating in seclusion and the little black dragon isn't playing with me. I have to walk around by myself. The Sky Pillar sect is a treasure land with spirit veins. The world's spirit energy here is abundant and the scenery is beautiful. I haven't appreciated it yet. Qianyu muttered as it flapped its little wings and flew into the sky, leaving the Tianqing courtyard. It flew past many courtyards and palaces, circling around the sky pillar sect and admiring the scenery of the mountain peaks. Wow, what a magnificent group of palaces! Hee, what rich world spirit energy! The mountain gate is also very spectacular. Yes, several mountain peaks join together to form a large array. How extravagant! Qianyu flew around the sky pillar sect, looking left and right. From time to time, it would exclaim or comment. Unknowingly, it had flown out of the sky pillar sect and entered another mountain peak. About 2 hours later, it was flying over a mountain peak, admiring the lush towering trees and the waterfall that flowed down from the mountainside. After wandering around for a while, it stopped at a forest path not far from the waterfall and looked around. Where is this place? Why do I feel that there aren't many disciples here, and there are also the auras of spirit beasts? Qianyu blinked and used its spiritual sense to silently investigate the auras of the mountain peak. At this time, it suddenly saw a female disciple in a white dress walking towards the peak of the mountain on the tree-lined path in front of it. It quickly flew over to the female disciple's side and asked in a sweet voice, "Sister, please wait. I would like to ask, where is this place?" The female disciple immediately stopped, and when she turned around and saw Qianyu, her eyes widened and a look of joy appeared on her pretty face. Wow, what a cute little guy. This furry little thing can actually talk. It's too cute. The female disciple looked at Qianyu in amazement and couldn't help but reach out to stroke its tail. Without a doubt, she had already been charmed by Qianyu's cuteness, and wished she could hug Qianyu and kiss him. Qianyu stared at her with wide eyes and pretended to be cute as she asked, "Pretty sister, where is this? I'm lost." The female disciple regained her senses and quickly said with a smile, "Of course this is the Spirit Beast Garden. Little fellow, did you run out from the Spirit Beast Garden? How did you get lost?" Spirit Beast Garden. Qianyu blinked and asked curiously, "Are there many spirit beasts there?" The female disciple nodded and said, "Of course. The Spirit Beast Garden is a place to raise spirit beasts. There must be many spirit beasts there. But those spirit beasts in the Spirit Beast Garden are not as smart and cute as you. You can even talk, really?" Qianyu was both happy and curious. It quickly begged, "Pretty sister, can you bring me to the Spirit Beast Garden? I want to see those spirit beasts." The female disciple liked Qianyu very much and couldn't bear to reject its request. She nodded and agreed. "All right, come with me." "Thank you, pretty sister," Qianyu said sweetly and followed the female disciple to the peak of the mountain. Just as the two of them left, a figure appeared on the tree-lined path. This person was Bai Wuchen. When Qianyu was flying in the sky and admiring the scenery, he noticed Qianyu and followed it all the way here. When he saw Qianyu following the female disciple to the peak of the mountain, he frowned and muttered, "That damned fox. Why is it going to the Spirit Beast Garden?" He frowned and thought for a moment. Then, he quickly followed the female disciple and quietly rushed to the peak of the mountain. 4 hours later, it was noon. Ji Tianqing temporarily ended his cultivation and walked out of the secret chamber. After a few days of bitter cultivation, he had successfully refined the 8th aperture and finally completed the first sword vein. Now, his strength had finally reached the second stage of the mystic enlightening realm. After walking out of the room, he stretched his body in the courtyard. Coincidentally, he saw a servant disciple fetching water from the well in the corner of the courtyard. He casually asked about it. "Ah Mu, have you seen Qianyu? Where did it go?" Ever since Ji Tianqing had moved into the Tianqing courtyard, Qianyu had been wandering around the courtyard all day. It had already become familiar with the servant disciples and maidservants. The servant disciple, Ah Mu, quickly put down the water bucket and reported to Ji Tianqing with cupped fists, "Senior brother Ji, Qianyu felt that the courtyard was not fun. It flew out this morning and hasn't returned yet. Ji Tianqing nodded and did not say anything. However, he was somewhat worried. With Qian Yu's temperament, I'm afraid it will cause some trouble by running around in the sect. However, it's smart and cunning. It shouldn't be at a disadvantage, right? After thinking for a moment, he turned around and returned to the study. He picked up a secret book on array formation and flipped through it while waiting for Qian Yu to return. However, 2 hours passed. Qian Yu still had not returned. The maidservant, Xiao Shuang, hurriedly walked to the door of the study and reported, "Senior Brother Ji, there's a deacon of the Spirit Beast Garden outside the door. He said he has something important to discuss with you." Ji Tianqing immediately put down the secret book and raised his eyebrows with a puzzled expression. A deacon of the Spirit Beast Garden? Why is he looking for me? Xiao Shuang hurriedly replied, "Xiao Shuang is not sure. However, looking at the deacon's expression, I'm afraid this matter is rather serious." Ji Tianqing frowned and walked out of the study. When he arrived at the door, he saw a middle-aged deacon in a black robe waiting with a grave expression. Seeing him come out, the middle-aged deacon opened his mouth and asked, "You are Ji Tianqing, right?" "I am Xiang Wu, the deacon of the Spirit Beast Garden." Ji Tianqing cupped his fists and bowed. He asked, "May I ask why Deacon Xiang is looking for me?" Xiang Wu frowned and said in a dignified tone, "Ji Tianqing, do you have a spirit beast pet? It's a little fox called Qian Yu, right?" Ji Tianqing vaguely guessed something and nodded. "Yes. Deacon Xiang, are you looking for me because of Qian Yu? Did it get into trouble?" Chapter 236. Hearing Xiang Wu's words, Ji Tianqing's brows twitched as a trace of surprise flashed across his eyes. "Deacon Xiang, that's impossible, right? My Qian Yu is still young and weak. How could she kill a rank 3 spirit beast?" Ji Tianqing knew that a rank 3 spirit beast's strength was equivalent to an expert at the 5th or 6th level of the profound comprehension realm. Although the Sky Pillar Sect Spirit Beast Garden had dozens of spirit beasts. Most of the spirit beasts in the garden were rank 1 and rank 2 spirit beasts. Rank 3 spirit beasts were rare, and there were only a few of them. When he heard that Qian Yu had killed a rank 3 spirit beast, his first reaction was disbelief. However, Xiang Wu nodded with a grave expression and said, "Ji Tianqing, this matter is absolutely true. Come with me." Ji Tianqing replied calmly, "That's fine too. I also want to see if there is any misunderstanding." Subsequently, he followed Xiang Wu and left the Tianqing courtyard for the Spirit Beast Garden. The Spirit Beast Garden was located at the back of the 9 peaks of the Sky Pillar sect. The two of them hurried for over an hour before arriving at the peak of Spirit Beast Peak. There were over a dozen palaces and courtyards on the peak, but most of the area was empty land with short shrubs and bushes. That area was protected by tall walls and arrays. It was the Spirit Beast Garden where spirit beasts were raised. Of course, there were a total of 3 beast gardens on Spirit Beast Peak. The 2 gardens halfway up the mountain were used to raise rank 1 and rank 2 low-grade spirit beasts. There were only 7 third-rank spirit beasts in the beast garden at the peak of the mountain. Xiang Wu first brought Ji Tianqing into the Spirit Beast Garden to check on the spirit beast that was killed. It was a quiet shadow leopard that was over 4 meters long. Its entire body was black and gray, and its muscles were filled with power. This was a genuine rank 3 spirit beast that could be used as a mount for an expert and could also participate in battles. Unfortunately, this quiet shadow leopard that had been raised in the Spirit Beast Garden for 5 years was now lying dead in the forest. There were no obvious wounds on its body, only a few claw marks on its head. However, its skull had been smashed into pieces. Blood, broken bones, and minced meat mixed together. It was a ghastly sight. Ji Tianqing knew at a glance that this shadow leopard had been attacked by a spirit beast and killed with a single swipe of its paw. Xiang Wu looked at the dead quiet shadow leopard with a pained expression. He said in a low voice, "We have raised this quiet shadow leopard for 5 years. It is already very intelligent. Originally, this shadow leopard was going to be awarded to an inner court disciple with outstanding performance in the heaven ranking competition next month. But now, sigh." Xiang Wu shook his head and sighed heavily. Ji Tianqing didn't say anything. He said expressionlessly, "Deacon Xiang, take me to see Qian Yu." Xiang Wu nodded and said in a deep voice, "This matter has alarmed Elder Wu of our hall. Your pet has been detained by him. Elder Wu is waiting for you in the main hall. I will take you there now." 15 minutes later, Xiang Wu took Ji Tianqing into the main hall of the Hall of Spirit Beasts. In the main hall, a skinny old man with gray hair and a beard was sitting at the head of the table. He was resting with his eyes closed, expressionless. He was Elder Wu of the Hall of Spirit Beasts. During the apprenticeship ceremony, he had given Ji Tianqing a congratulatory gift. On the wooden table next to Elder Wu, there was a black iron cage the size of a wash basin. The iron cage was engraved with patterns of an array. It was glowing with a colorful glow and emitting true origin energy. Qian Yu was curled up in the iron cage, looking drowsy. Xiang Wu took Ji Tianqing into the main hall and bowed to Elder Wu. "Greetings, Elder Wu. I have brought Ji Tianqing here." Only then did Elder Wu open his eyes and look at Ji Tianqing indifferently. Qian Yu was woken up by Xiang Wu's words. It raised its head and looked outside. Seeing Ji Tianqing, Qian Yu smiled as if a heavy burden had been lifted off its shoulders. Ji Tianqing stepped forward and cupped his fists to Elder Wu. "Greetings, Elder Wu. I am Ji Tianqing." Elder Wu nodded slightly and said unhurriedly, "Ji Tianqing, Deacon Xiang has already shown you the corpse of the shadow leopard, right?" Ji Tianqing answered honestly, "Yes, I have. But this cannot prove that it was my pet that killed the shadow leopard. There may be more to this." "More to this?" Elder Wu raised his eyebrows and said in a dignified tone, "Manager Xiang saw it with his own eyes and your pet has confessed. Do you still want to defend yourself?" Ji Tianqing didn't argue. He turned to Qian Yu and asked, "Qian Yu, did you really kill that shadow leopard?" Speaking of this, Qian Yu was angry. "Ji, you can't blame me for this. That little leopard suddenly went crazy and attacked me for no reason. I fought back. Who would have thought that the little leopard would be so weak even though it looked so powerful? I killed it with one slap of my paw." Ji Tianqing was overjoyed. He asked in disbelief, "You really killed the shadow leopard with one paw? That was a third-rank spiritual beast." Elder Wu's face turned darker when he saw that Su Ping didn't feel guilty at all. Instead, he was overjoyed. Xiang Wu stared at Ji Tianqing, speechless. He mumbled to himself, "How can this kid be so unruly? Your pet is in big trouble. Why are you so happy?" Qian Yu seemed to be afraid that Ji Tianqing would be angry. He quickly explained, "Ji, I'm innocent. I was just taking a stroll in the spirit beast garden. Who knew that the little leopard would suddenly go crazy and bite me? Also, it was too weak. I just fought back instinctively. I slapped it with my paw and it died. Ji, I really just slapped it. I didn't mean to kill it." Ji Tianqing was even more surprised when he heard Qian Yu's explanation. Qian Yu has only recovered 30% of his strength. He can kill a third-rank spiritual beast with just one paw. If he recovers 50% or 60% of his strength, won't he be able to deal with fourth-rank spiritual beasts of the origin core realm? Thinking of this, he was full of expectations. Seeing Qian Yu's anxious and aggrieved look, he quickly smiled and nodded. "Qian Yu, I believe you didn't do it on purpose. It's not your fault." Qian Yu immediately smiled and nodded. He said coquettishly, "Ji, I knew you were reliable." Elder Wu's face turned even darker. He said in a dignified voice, Ji Tianqing, I summoned you here not to comfort your pet, but to solve this matter. Ji Tianqing nodded and said calmly, since that shadow leopard was killed by my pet, I have nothing to say. How should I solve this matter? Elder Wu, please tell me. Elder Wu was very dissatisfied with his attitude. He shouted in a dignified voice, how should I solve it? Of course, I will punish you according to the sect rules. Can you give me back a shadow leopard? Chapter 237. Hearing Ji Tianqing's words, Elder Wu was startled. He frowned and stared at Ji Tianqing with a solemn expression. He asked, Ji Tianqing, is this true? Ji Tianqing nodded without hesitation. Of course it is true. If Elder Wu trusts me, I will personally present you with a third-rank spirit beast within 5 days. Elder Wu was silent as he weighed the pros and cons. If he were to punish Ji Tianqing according to the sect rules, not only would it not help, but it would also cause this sect master's disciple to harbor resentment. At this point, this was the only way to recoup the losses. Thus, Elder Wu nodded and said in a serious tone, Ji Tianqing, you are the sect master's personal disciple. Of course, I trust you. I'll give you 5 days. I'm waiting for you to accompany me with a third-rank spirit beast. During this time, your pet Qian Yu will be detained in my spirit beast hall. If you can't compensate me after 5 days, then don't blame me for being merciless and punishing you according to the sect rules. Ji Tianqing nodded without changing his expression. Thank you, Elder Wu. Then it's a deal. Elder Wu nodded slightly and said in a calm tone, if you want to capture spirit beasts, you can go to Boundless Mountain, which is 200 miles southeast of our sect. It is a place with spirit veins. Spirit beasts often appear in Boundless Mountain. Most of the spirit beasts raised in our hall are captured from there. Ji Tianqing silently remembered his words and cupped his fists. Thank you, Elder Wu, for your advice. This matter was settled. He comforted Qian Yu and asked it to wait patiently in the spirit beast hall. Qian Yu nodded in agreement and reminded him to be careful. After that, Ji Tianqing bowed to Elder Wu and left the spirit beast hall. Not long after he left, a white-robed youth walked out from a corner outside the spirit beast hall. This person was Bai Wuchen. He glanced at the main hall of the spirit beast hall and then looked in the direction where Ji Tianqing left. The corner of his mouth curled into a mocking sneer. Ji Tianqing, oh Ji Tianqing, with just your strength, you dare to go to Boundless Mountain to capture spirit beasts. Humph. At that time, if you don't return and die miserably in Boundless Mountain, that would be great news to everyone's satisfaction. I secretly used a flying needle to attack the quiet shadow leopard, causing it to go crazy and attack the fox. Unfortunately, the smelly fox is not weak, it was actually not killed by the quiet shadow leopard. After muttering a few words, Bai Wuchen turned around and quickly left the spirit beast peak. At the same time, Ji Tianqing returned to the Tianqing courtyard. He summoned the maidservant and 2 odd job workers. With a solemn expression, he said, I need to go out for a trip. It will take about 3 to 5 days. For the next few days, you will stay in Tianqing courtyard and do not receive anyone. If anyone comes looking for me, tell them to come back in 5 days. After giving the order, he left the towering sky peak and hurried to Boundless Mountain in the southeast. On the Red Cloud Peak, in a certain palace, Chu Tiansheng was dealing with sect affairs in his study. At this time, a middle-aged guard wearing a black robe quickly walked to the door of the study and respectfully reported, Sect Master, something has happened to Ji Tianqing. Chu Tiansheng put down the file in his hand, frowned, and asked in a deep voice, what happened? The middle-aged guard walked into the study and reported to Chu Tiansheng in a low voice, not long ago, Deacon Xiang Wu of the Spirit Beast Hall went to find Ji Tianqing. After listening to the middle-aged guard's report, Chu Tiansheng frowned and thought for a moment. Then, he nodded slightly and said, since his pet killed a spirit beast in the spirit beast garden, Elder Wu dealt with it in accordance with the sect rules. He did not deliberately make things difficult for him. He wants to go to Boundless Mountain to capture spirit beasts and compensate the spirit beast garden. It is reasonable. Let him go. It is true that it is risky for him to go to Boundless Mountain to capture spirit beasts given his strength. But he is my disciple. If he can't even solve this problem, how can he convince the others in the future? You don't have to protect him in secret. Let him deal with it himself. The middle-aged guard hesitated for a moment and asked in a low voice, Sect Master, I am worried that if Ji Tianqing goes to Boundless Mountain, will that young master in the mountain be alerted? Chu Tianqing was silent for a moment. Then, he shook his head and said, there is a protective formation in the mountain. He should be fine. I understand. The middle-aged guard cupped his hands and left the study. Ji Tian used shadowless steps Qin Gong and used his true essence to run wildly in the mountains. He was so fast that he was like a gust of wind, crossing mountains and ridges as he hurried to Boundless Mountain. While he was hurrying, he was secretly analyzing the situation. Although Qianyue is a little mischievous, it is not to the extent of deliberately causing trouble. It is also impossible for it to kill the spirit beasts in the spirit beast garden for no reason. Previously, it said that when it was strolling in the spirit beast garden, it was attacked by a crazy shadow leopard. It subconsciously counterattacked and killed the shadow leopard. The spirit beasts in the spirit beast garden have been domesticated by the spirit beast hall for many years. They are very intelligent and will not go crazy for no reason. There might be something fishy about this matter. After I go to Boundless Mountain to capture spirit beasts and compensate the spirit beast hall, I will definitely get to the bottom of this matter. About 2 hours later, Ji Tianqing crossed 200 miles of mountains and finally arrived at Boundless Mountain. It was almost evening, and the sun was about to set. He stood at the foot of Boundless Mountain and looked up at Boundless Mountain that was shrouded in the afterglow of the setting sun. His eyes flashed with a hint of seriousness. Boundless Mountain was the closest spirit vein treasure land to the Sky Pillar sect. This mountain range was dozens of miles in radius. The mountain was steep and precipitous, and the trees on the mountain were lush and lush, containing dense heaven and earth spirit chi. There was a winding river at the foot of the mountain. The river water was so clear that one could see the bottom. Schools of fish could clearly be seen swimming slowly at the bottom of the river. Not far away, there were 3 yellow-brown golden deer and a few white birds drinking water by the river. Seeing that someone had arrived, the 3 golden deer hurriedly left the river. The white birds were not afraid of people. After drinking the water, they strolled in the bushes by the river as if they were hunting insects for food. This Boundless Mountain is rich in spirit chi and lush with vegetation. It is indeed a spirit vein treasure land. Not only are there intelligent spirit beasts, but there are also many demon beasts and ordinary wild beasts entrenched in the mountain. I hope my luck is good enough to encounter the spirit beasts that appear here. Ji Tianqing stared at Boundless Mountain for a moment before walking into the mountain. Once he entered the dense forest, the afterglow of the setting sun was blocked by the trees. The light in the forest was dim, and the ground was damp, faintly emitting the smell of rotten vegetation. Ji Tianqing shuttled through the forest with light steps. He tried his best not to make any noise as he quickly rushed into the depths of Boundless Mountain. While shuttling through the forest, his sharp eyes searched the surroundings for various beasts that were hiding in the forest. 2 hours later, the sun finally set. The forest became dark and gloomy, and the roars of beasts rose and fell one after another from all directions. Chapter 238. Night had come. Ji Tianqing had reached the halfway point of Boundless Mountain and was traversing through the dense forest. The roars of beasts could be heard all around him, and the rustling of leaves could be heard from the forest. He knew that the beasts in the mountain had begun to hunt for food. Boundless Mountain at night was a paradise for all kinds of beasts, demon beasts, and spirit beasts, but it was a dangerous forbidden zone for humans. Ji Tianqing traversed through the forest. Not only did he have to be on guard against the attacks of beasts and demon beasts, he also had to be on guard against the poisonous snakes and insects hidden in the bushes and trees. He remembered a few months ago when he had not yet recovered to the true energy realm and was searching for the red star flower in Taiyi mountain range. At that time, he was only in the body refining realm, but he was attacked by many demon beasts in Taiyi mountain range and almost lost his life several times. Now that a few months had passed, he once again ventured into the mountain range where demon beasts ran rampant, but he was not as scared as before. With his current strength, he could ignore low-level and mid-level demon beasts. Only high-level demon beasts could pose a threat to him. Suddenly, in the forest not far ahead, there was a deep roar of a beast. Ji Tianqing's gaze pierced through the darkness of the night. He could vaguely see a pair of green eyes 100 steps away from him. Those green eyes were staring at him, revealing a cruel and bloodthirsty chill. I met a dozen demon beasts on my way up the mountain, but they all retreated. I didn't expect this demon beast to target me. Ji Tianqing sneered in his heart and silently drew out the black dragon sword. After a while, the demon beast in the forest finally could not hold back its bloodthirsty desire. It roared in a deep voice and rushed over as fast as the wind. When it was close enough, Ji Tianqing could see clearly that it was a wind patrol wolf. The wind patrol wolf was one of the stronger mid-level demon beasts. It was extremely fast, cruel, and cunning, and usually acted alone. Its strength was equivalent to a 5th or 6th level true energy realm martial artist. Swoosh! Under the cover of the night, the wind scout wolf rushed to within 10 steps of Ji Tianqing and pounced at him. Its huge body, which was 4 meters long, carried a strong pressure and strong wind as it pounced down from above Ji Tianqing's head. Ji Tianqing did not dodge. His eyes were fixed on the incoming wind wolf, and he instantly pulled out his black dragon sword. Clang! A crisp sound of a sword rang out. The black dragon sword flashed with a dazzling cold light, carrying an incomparably violent power as it slashed towards the wind wolf. When the wind wolf sensed the terrifying power and aura of the black dragon sword, its eyes suddenly became panicked. However, it was in midair, and it was impossible to avoid it. Boom! With a muffled sound, the 3-meter-long golden sword light split the wind wolf into 2 halves. It didn't even have the time to let out a scream before its head was separated from its body and fell to the ground, sprinkling a puddle of dark red blood. Ji Tianqing put away the black dragon sword and left with an expressionless face. With his strength, a mid-rank demonic beast would basically be killed in one strike. He did not continue on his way, and stopped 100 steps away from the forest. With a leap, he jumped onto a towering tree and sat on the branch, waiting quietly. 100 steps away from him, the wind scout wolf's corpse was lying in the grass. Blood was constantly flowing out, emitting a thick smell of blood. The thick smell of blood would attract many demonic beasts and spirit beasts. Ji Tianqing had to wait for the spirit beasts to appear. Time passed by quietly. In the quiet forest, the rustling of footsteps and the roars of beasts rose and fell. Soon, a few demonic beasts smelled the smell of blood and quietly rushed to the wind scout wolf's corpse. They were 3 mid-rank red flame tigers. They looked around for a moment, and after confirming that there was no danger nearby, they quickly devoured the wind scout wolf's corpse. In just a short time, the wind scout wolf's corpse was completely eaten, and the 3 red flame tigers quickly left. Although, there were still a few demonic beasts that rushed over. But these demonic beasts acted alone. When they saw the 3 red flame tigers, they hid in the dark and did not dare to show their faces, or quietly retreated. Ji Tianqing hid on the branch of a towering tree and witnessed the whole process. He could not help but frown, somewhat disappointed. These demonic beasts devoured the corpse too quickly, and the other demonic beasts were also very cautious, hiding in the dark and would not easily show themselves. It seems that my idea of using demonic beasts' corpses to attract the target will not work. I have to think of another way. He frowned and thought for a moment, then took out the psychic astrolabe from his interspatial ring. The psychic astrolabe was the Ji family's ancestral treasure, a top-grade profound artifact. It could be said to be priceless and incomparably precious. When Ji Changkong gave this astrolabe to him, he said that this astrolabe could be used to detect the aura of spirit veins, rare treasures, and spirit objects. Therefore, Ji Tianqing had been carrying the psychic astrolabe with him. Since he obtained the red star flower, this psychic astrolabe had not been used. Now, he wanted to use the psychic astrolabe again to detect the aura of spirit beasts. Ji Tianqing jumped down from the treetop, walked in the dark forest, and continued to rush into the depths of Boundless Mountain. He held the psychic astrolabe in his left hand, and pressed his right palm on the astrolabe, injecting true essence into it to activate the array on the astrolabe. When he was looking for the red star flower in the past, he was only in the body refining realm, and did not understand the mystery of the psychic astrolabe at all, so he could not exert much of its effect and power. Now, it was different. With his strength and array attainments, he could exert 60 to 70% of the psychic astrolabe's effect. Ji Tianqing traversed through the night without making a sound, just like a phantom. The black dragon sword also turned into a small black dragon, following him closely, vigilantly observing the surroundings. Along the way, many demonic beasts found Ji Tianqing's trace and were eager to attack. However, those demonic beasts were basically low-rank and middle-rank demonic beasts. After they sensed the aura of the small black dragon, they were frightened and did not dare to show up. About 2 hours later, Ji Tianqing walked 30 miles through the forest and finally came to the depths of Boundless Mountain. In the process, although he encountered dozens of demonic beasts, none of them dared to take the initiative to attack him. Suddenly, the psychic astrolabe reacted and lit up with a pale silver brilliance. I finally detected the aura of spirit beasts. Ji Tianqing's eyes showed a touch of joy, and he quickly carefully checked the lines and patterns on the psychic astrolabe. After a moment of observation, he identified the direction and quickly rushed to the left. Under the guidance of the psychic astrolabe, he found a beast cave in the jungle on the top of the mountain. When he got into the beast cave, he could clearly sense the spiritual chi fluctuations coming from the depths of the beast cave without the guidance of the psychic astrolabe. Chapter 239. The beast cave was not large, but it was large enough for Ji Tianqing to smoothly enter. The inside of the cave was as black as ink, but the ground and walls were very dry. Only a fishy smell pervaded the air. Ji Tianqing endured the unpleasant smell as he followed the winding beast caves and dived into the depths of the underground. The little black dragon consciously shrunk its body to 2 meters long, opening the path in front of him and investigating the situation. About 7 minutes later, Ji Tianqing and the little black dragon had walked several hundred steps along the beast cave before finally entering the depths of the beast cave. In the depths of the beast cave was a cave with a radius of over 20 meters. This cave was naturally formed, without the slightest trace of man-made carving. The ground was covered with strange craggy rocks, and there were some natural ores on the walls, emitting a dim light. The world spirit chi in the cave was abundant, and the flowers and shrubs growing out of the cracks in the rocks were also medicinal herbs with good effects. Seeing the environment of the cave, Ji Tianqing was even more certain that this was definitely a cave occupied by spirit beasts. After all, spirit beasts were more intelligent than demonic beasts. They liked to live in spirit veins and treasure lands, occupying places with abundant world spirit chi. While Ji Tianqing was examining the situation of the cave, the little black dragon was already circling around in the cave, investigating the situation in advance. Suddenly, it let out a low dragon roar, and its body turned back to 5 meters long. Its body exploded with a dazzling cold light, and it pounced towards the rocks in the corner of the cave. Ong! The dragon roar reverberated in the cave, waking Ji Tianqing with a start. He turned his head to look, and saw that in the corner of the cave, there was a 2-meter-tall long-armed spirit ape that looked like a black bear. That long-armed spirit ape was covered in fiery red hair, and its arms were extremely long and thick. It had originally been hiding in the rocks, but after being discovered by the little black dragon, it wanted to quietly escape. The little black dragon pounced over with a roar, and the long-armed spirit ape was scared out of its wits. It immediately jumped out of the rocks and ran for its life towards the exit of the cave. However, the long-armed spirit ape was too slow and could not dodge the little black dragon's attack. Bang! With a loud bang, the little black dragon's dragon claws viciously slammed into the long-armed spirit ape, sending it flying back and smashing into the stone wall of the cave. The pile of strange rocks was also smashed into pieces by the dragon claw, causing countless pieces of gravel to fly out. The loud noise echoed in the cave. Ji Tianqing hurried over. When he arrived near the rubble, he discovered that the long-armed spirit ape was lying in the rubble. Its body was twisted out of shape, and blood was flowing out of its body. It was heavily injured. Ji Tianqing frowned slightly and said to the little black dragon in a low voice, "Little black dragon, don't be so impulsive. It wasn't easy for me to find a spirit beast. Don't kill it." The little black dragon also came back to his senses and a hint of shame flashed through his eyes. He nodded and said, "Old Ji, I'm sorry. I was afraid that he would run away." Ji Tianqing stared at the long-armed spirit ape for a moment before he shook his head and said, "Forget it. This long-armed spirit ape is only a rank 2 spirit beast. Even if we capture it, we won't be able to report back. Let's go. I'll continue to search." He was somewhat disappointed. He left the cave with the little black dragon and continued to search the mountain. Unknowingly, another 4 hours passed. A night passed, and only at daybreak did he find the aura of a second spirit beast. The entrance of this spirit beast's cave was on a steep cliff and was blocked by a few large rocks and bushes. With the little black dragon's help, Ji Tianqing descended onto the cliff and entered the spirit beast's cave. When he and the little black dragon entered the depths of the cave, he discovered that the spirit beast in this cave was also a rank 2 spirit beast. However, this spirit beast was a golden-crowned eagle. It flew as fast as an arrow, had sharp claws like blades, and was extremely aggressive. When the little black dragon discovered it, it restrained itself from attacking. But the golden-crowned eagle did not know what was good for it. In its panic and anger, it attacked Ji Tianqing with all its strength. The strength of a rank 2 spirit beast was only equivalent to a martial artist at the 7th or 8th level of the true element realm. It was slightly stronger than a rank 2 demonic beast. This rank 2 golden-crowned eagle was simply no match for Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing only needed to activate 2 sword rays to exchange 2 blows with the golden-crowned eagle before killing it. After killing the golden-crowned eagle, he frowned and thought for a moment. Then he said in a low voice, "We can't continue like this. Even if I use the psychic star disc to find spirit beasts, it will be a waste of time. Moreover, I only found rank 2 spirit beasts. They don't meet the requirements of the spirit beast hall." The little black dragon looked at him in confusion and asked, "Old Ji, then what do you plan to do? Do we continue to search?" Ji Tianqing thought for a moment. Suddenly, an idea flashed through his mind. "I got it. I've thought of a way. When I was studying arrays in the Great Peace Palace, I once saw Senior Xiang's secret book on arrays. In the book, I saw an illusionary spirit array. This illusionary spirit array can release powerful spirit chi fluctuations. It can also imitate the movements and aura of spirit beasts. It will definitely attract spirit beasts. The illusionary spirit array is equivalent to a hunting trap. However, it is a high-level trap used to capture spirit beasts. Only experts and those who are proficient in arrays would use this method. If I put this golden-crowned eagle's corpse in the array as bait, it will definitely attract many spirit beasts. After the little black dragon heard this, it nodded seriously and said, "Old G, although I don't quite understand the illusionary spirit array you speak of, it sounds very powerful." Then, Ji Tianqing took the golden-crowned eagle's corpse and left the cave. He found an open space on the mountain peak and began to set up the illusionary spirit array. The illusionary spirit array was only a black-grade medium-grade array. It only needed to cover an area of 10 meters. With Ji Tianqing's strength and array attainments, as well as the little black dragon's help, setting up this array was naturally easy. In a short 6 hours, Ji Tianqing had successfully set up the illusionary spirit array. This open space with a radius of 20 meters seemed to be covered in weeds. There were several millstone-sized rocks lying around, but in reality, it was already covered by the illusionary spirit array. Ji Tianqing threw the golden-crowned eagle's corpse on one of the millstone-sized rocks. Then, he jumped onto a nearby tree and patiently waited. The illusionary spirit array began to operate. It constantly emitted invisible spirit chi fluctuations that spread in all directions. Moreover, the fluctuations of the array's energy were extremely similar to the aura of spirit beasts. Ji Tianqing hid in the treetops of the large tree. He did his best to conceal his aura as he silently observed the movements in his surroundings. About an hour later, the effects of the illusionary spirit array finally appeared. A golden-furred mouse the size of a dog silently crept up the mountain peak and very cautiously approached the illusionary spirit array. After Ji Tianqing clearly saw the golden-furred mouse's appearance, he could not help but frown. Why is it another rank 2 spirit beast? When the golden-furred mouse was about to enter the illusionary spirit array, Ji Tianqing hurriedly jumped down from the tree and chased the golden-furred mouse away. He waited for another 4 hours until evening. Finally, a second spirit beast appeared. It was a ferocious tiger that was 4 meters long and completely white. There was a golden horn on its forehead, and even its eyes were golden. Its body emitted a powerful aura as it steadily approached the mountain peak and walked towards the illusionary spirit array. Chapter 240. A rank 4 spirit beast was equivalent to an origin core powerhouse. There were only a few rank 3 spirit beasts in the Sky Pillar Sect Spirit Beast Garden, but there were no rank 4 spirit beasts. Ji Tianqing had heard from Yun Yao that there were only 2 rank 4 spirit beasts in the Sky Pillar Sect. One of them was the Sect Master's Mount, and the other was the guardian beast of the Forbidden Area. In the ancient realm of the stars, rank 4 spirit beasts were extremely rare. The other 7 sects with weaker foundations only had 1 rank 4 spirit beast at most. Ji Tianqing could not believe that a rank 4 golden-eyed white tiger had appeared in Boundless Mountain. His heart was filled with shock and disbelief as he thought to himself, "I wonder if I'm too lucky or too unlucky." Rank 4 spirit beasts were rare, but they were too powerful and could be compared to an origin core powerhouse. Ji Tianqing silently considered. With his strength, how likely was it to capture the golden-eyed white tiger? This golden-eyed white tiger's strength is comparable to an origin core powerhouse. If I use force, I definitely won't be able to defeat it or subdue it. Fortunately, spirit beasts are more human-like, especially this golden-eyed white tiger. Its intelligence is also higher. I have to think of a way to subdue it and try not to clash with it. At this moment, the golden-eyed white tiger stepped into the open space and stared at the golden-crowned eagle's corpse on the millstone with a puzzled expression. It clearly felt a strong spirit energy fluctuation in this area and the aura of a few spirit beasts moving around, so it rushed over to see what was going on. However, when it arrived, it discovered that this was just an open space with a golden-crowned eagle's corpse. It stared at the golden-crowned eagle's corpse in confusion and slowly walked around the millstone, trying to figure out what was going on. Unknowingly, the golden-eyed white tiger stepped into the illusionary spirit formation. When it walked under the millstone and approached the golden-crowned eagle's corpse, the illusionary spirit formation was finally activated. Swoosh! At that moment, the illusionary spirit formation lit up with a dazzling golden light and instantly formed a golden light barrier with a radius of 20 meters. Before the golden-eyed white tiger could react, it was enveloped by the golden light barrier. The illusory spirit array could imitate the aura of spirit beasts, but it was also a trapping array. Immediately, a powerful suppressive force burst out, firmly imprisoning the golden-eyed white tiger. The golden-eyed white tiger immediately realized that the situation had taken a turn for the worse. It raised its head and roared twice, emitting a tiger's roar that shook the forest. The trees and earth within a radius of 100 meters were trembling non-stop, and the branches and leaves of the trees were making rustling sounds. Ji Tianqing's face was full of surprise. He couldn't help but mutter, "This golden-eyed white tiger's aura is too strong." In the next moment, the golden-eyed white tiger's body lit up with turbid flames. It twisted its body and struggled with all its might. It let out 2 low roars and burst out with a powerful force. Soon, it broke free from the suppression of the illusory spirit array and walked in the array. Even though the illusory spirit array was operating at full power and constantly releasing a powerful suppressive force, it could no longer suppress it. It paced back and forth within the golden light barrier, occasionally reaching out its gigantic tiger claws and slapping the golden light barrier. Bam! 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 A series of muffled sounds rang out, and the entire illusory spirit array trembled from the slaps. The golden light barrier shook violently, rippling as if it couldn't bear the heavy burden. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing couldn't suppress the anxiety in his heart and hurriedly jumped down from the tree. He brought the little black dragon and rushed outside the illusory spirit array. He hurriedly waved his palm and injected golden true essence into the array's light barrier. "Little black dragon, quickly help me strengthen the illusory spirit array. We can't let the golden-eyed white tiger escape." The little black dragon nodded and hurriedly extended its dragon claws, injecting its true essence into the illusory spirit array. The illusory spirit array was already a little overwhelmed and was about to crack from the golden-eyed white tiger's slaps. After Ji Tianqing and the little black dragon injected their true essence, the array's power increased significantly, and the golden light barrier became thicker. The golden-eyed white tiger actually stopped struggling and stared indifferently at him and the little black dragon. It slowly paced back and forth, its step steady and majestic. It actually emitted an extremely powerful and domineering aura. Ji Tianqing had only heard of the phrase, crouching tiger and coiling dragon, in the past. Today, he truly experienced the majestic aura of the king of beasts. Although this golden-eyed white tiger was a spirit beast, it was as mighty and domineering as a human emperor. Ji Tianqing saw that the golden-eyed white tiger seemed to have emotions and intelligence. It seemed to be thinking about something, so he tried to communicate with it. Unfortunately, he wasn't a beast tamer who reared spirit beasts and didn't know how to communicate with them. He could only use a gentle expression and gaze to express to the golden-eyed white tiger that he had no ill intentions. However, the golden-eyed white tiger only calmed down for a moment before it lost the patience to observe and think. It let out a warning roar at Ji Tianqing. Then, it waved its front claws with all its might and fiercely slammed them against the array's light barrier. Not only that, it also opened its bloody mouth and condensed a turbid yellowish-brown flame in its mouth. It fiercely attacked the array's light barrier. That yellowish-brown flame contained the power to destroy the heavens and earth and exuded an incomparably violent aura. Even though there was a layer of array's light barrier between them, Ji Tianqing was still shocked and fearful. Boom! The fireball fiercely hit the array's light barrier and exploded with an earth-shattering sound. At that moment, the fireball exploded, bursting forth with an overwhelming yellowish-brown flame that covered a radius of 10 meters. A huge hole was instantly blasted in the array's light barrier of the illusionary spirit array, and dense cracks burst out from it. After a violent tremor, the illusionary spirit array collapsed on the spot. The golden-eyed white tiger finally regained its freedom after being freed from the array's restraints. It let out an excited roar. Swoosh! With a flash of yellowish-brown flame, the golden-eyed white tiger rushed 10 meters away and escaped from the illusionary spirit array. It rushed down the mountain as fast as an arrow leaving the bow. In the blink of an eye, it rushed nearly 100 meters away. Ji Tianqing didn't have time to feel sorry for the collapse of the illusionary spirit array. He let out a low shout and chased after it. Little black dragon, chase it. He had encountered a rank 4 spirit beast with great difficulty and had even paid the price of an array. How could he let the golden-eyed white tiger escape? The little black dragon hurriedly carried Ji Tianqing and chased after the golden-eyed white tiger at lightning speed, flying down the mountain. The golden-eyed white tiger was a rank 4 spirit beast that had condensed a demon core and was extremely fast. However, it still couldn't fly. Even if it ran at full speed through the forest, it couldn't shake off the little black dragon flying in the sky. Swoosh swoosh. The golden-eyed white tiger was like a white afterimage as it shuttled through the dense forest, knocking down countless trees along the way. The little black dragon followed closely behind it. After flying in the sky for about 15 minutes and crossing half a mountain, it was forced to stop. This was because the golden-eyed white tiger had fled halfway up the mountain on the other side of the mountain. It had burrowed into a dark red cave and disappeared. Chapter 241. The little black dragon stopped outside the cave entrance. Ji Tianqing jumped down from its back, walked to the entrance of the cave, and carefully observed the cave. Now that he was close, he could clearly sense the blazing heat emanating from the cave entrance. The fire in the cave seems to be rather similar to the fire on the golden-eyed white tiger's body. It seems that this cave should be the lair of the golden-eyed white tiger. It's also a treasured land rich in spiritual energy. It's highly likely that it contains the energy of that fire. Ji Tianqing analyzed the situation for a few moments before muttering to himself. The little black dragon sternly said, "Old Ji, that white tiger fled into the cave. If we chase after it, it'll have nowhere to run." Ji Tianqing slightly nodded and gravely warned, "This is the lair of the golden-eyed white tiger. Let's be careful. Let's not have any accidents." The little black dragon nodded and flew into the cave, leading the way. Ji Tianqing followed closely behind, entering the blazing cave. The cave was rather spacious and could accommodate 3 people walking side by side. The walls on both sides of the cave were smooth and flat. Ji Tianqing took a few glances and vaguely guessed that this cave did not seem to be naturally formed, but rather man-made. This made him even more confused. Was there someone living in this cave? If that was really the case, did the golden-eyed white tiger not already have a master? However, this was only his conjecture and could not be confirmed for the time being. He had to enter the cave and see for himself. Unless absolutely necessary, he would not give up on the golden-eyed white tiger. The light in the cave was dim. Ji Tianqing had only walked 20 meters when the area ahead of him became gloomy. Moreover, the ground and walls of the cave became hotter and hotter, faintly exuding a scarlet color. It was like a red-hot stone. Fortunately, he was wearing the Golden Sun's soft armor and could use his true essence to protect his body, so he did not feel too uncomfortable. The little black dragon also exuded an icy chi that enveloped him and helped him alleviate the burning sensation. A few minutes later, Ji Tianqing had walked several hundred meters through the winding cave and entered the interior of the mountain. At this moment, he suddenly realized that there was a faint flame in front of him, faintly illuminating the gloomy cave. After walking another 100 meters, he arrived at the place where the fire was dazzling. Only now did he clearly see that it was a pile of scarlet stones emitting a fiery light that blocked the cave. There were more than 100 stones, each the size of a basin. Ji Tianqing couldn't help but reveal a playful smile when he saw this scene, and he muttered in a low voice, "This golden-eyed white tiger is really interesting. It actually set up such an obstacle to obstruct me. Little black dragon, push those stones away." Upon receiving the order, the little black dragon hurriedly extended a pair of dragon claws and pushed away the pile of fiery rocks. It was an ice flood dragon, so it was naturally not afraid of being burned by fire. After getting rid of the wall of fire, Ji Tianqing and the little black dragon continued forward. Not long after, they reached the end of the path. Ji Tianqing and the little black dragon entered a spacious cave, their sharp eyes examining their surroundings. This cave was 100 meters wide. The cave was illuminated by a dim yellow flame, so it was not gloomy at all. The ground and walls of the cave were all made of hard rock, but they had all been burned red by the yellowish-brown flames and exuded a scorching qi. In the center of the cave, there were 10 some dark red millstones that were also glowing with a dark red flame. The air in the cave was scorching hot, like invisible waves of fire were roiling about. Even so, in the corners of the cave, there were still some spirit grasses and fiery red mushrooms growing. Ji Tianqing could recognize that these short spirit grasses were flame grasses, while the fiery red mushrooms would grow into flame lingji after a few dozen years. As expected, this is a treasure ground rich in spiritual energy. The fire element spiritual energy in this cave is abnormally dense. If a martial artist that cultivates fire element true essence were to cultivate here, they would definitely be able to achieve twice the results with half the effort and rapidly increase their strength. At this moment, the little black dragon suddenly warned in a low voice, "Old Ji, look over there in that pile of rocks. The white tiger is there." Ji Tianqing followed its gaze. As expected, he saw a pile of large rocks in the depths of the cave, each one emitting a fiery light. The golden-eyed white tiger was hiding behind the rocks, only revealing half its head and 2 eyes. It was indifferently watching him and the little black dragon. "Let's go and take a look," Ji Tianqing whispered as he led the little black dragon into the depths of the cave, unhurriedly approaching the golden-eyed white tiger. As he passed through the center of the cave, he glanced at the 10 some millstone stones on the ground. He could faintly sense that these millstone stones were somewhat mysterious, as if they were arranged according to some sort of law. Not only that, in the center of these millstone stones was a gray-white egg half the height of a person. What sort of egg is this? It's so large. It should have nothing to do with the golden-eyed white tiger, right? After all, it can't lay eggs. Ji Tianqing muttered to himself, his heart filled with doubt. He wanted to go closer and take a closer look. At this moment, the golden-eyed white tiger let out a low roar and actually walked out from behind the rocks. Its eyes were fixed on Ji Tianqing as it strode forward with its powerful limbs. With heavy steps, it slowly approached Ji Tianqing and the little black dragon. With every step it took, it would open its mouth and let out a low roar, as if it was warning Ji Tianqing to leave the cave. Ji Tianqing could faintly sense that the golden-eyed white tiger was approaching him as if it were protecting the large egg behind him. Seeing its eyes turn vicious and its body erupt with brown flames, ready to pounce at any moment, Ji Tianqing couldn't help but frown. "Oh no, the golden-eyed white tiger has been enraged by us. It seems like it's about to attack." As he spoke, he secretly gathered his true essence, preparing to activate his sword glows at any moment to attack. Hearing his warning, the little black dragon's expression turned grave as it raised its guard. The distance between the two sides was slowly closing and the atmosphere was becoming increasingly tense. A great battle could erupt at any moment. But at this critical moment, Ji Tianqing suddenly heard a clear child's voice from behind him. "Who are you? Why have you entered the boundless cave?" This was the voice of a little boy. It sounded somewhat weak, as if he had just woken up and was still in a confused state. When this voice rang out, the golden-eyed white tiger immediately stopped moving and its fierce aura gradually withdrew. Ji Tianqing immediately turned around and searched for the source of the voice. However, the cave was completely empty. There was not a single person in sight, much less a little boy. Who's talking? He was inwardly on guard as he keenly searched every corner of the cave. The child's voice rang out once more, its tone solemn, This is the forbidden area of the Sky Pillar sect. What do you want to do by entering the boundless cave? Are you not afraid of angering the Sky Pillar sect? This time, Ji Tianqing finally heard it clearly. The little boy's voice had actually come from the large egg in the middle of the cave. Boundless cave. The forbidden area of the Sky Pillar sect. Chapter 242. Boundless Mountain was 200 miles away from the Sky-bearing sect, and it was the closest spirit vein treasure land to the Sky-bearing sect. There was a rule in the star's ancient realm that the territory of each sect was within 300 miles of the sect. In this way, this boundless cave was indeed the territory of the Sky-bearing sect. As for why this place was a forbidden area, Ji Tianqing didn't understand for the time being. However, one thing was certain, this boundless cave was definitely man-made. The dozen or so millstone stones around the grayish-white giant egg also contained the law of a formation. Obviously, it was a large formation. Ji Tianqing frowned and thought for a moment before asking the grayish-white giant egg, in that case, you must be a disciple of the Sky-bearing sect, right? The little boy on the giant egg immediately replied, of course. I'm the direct disciple of the sect master. The sect master's direct disciple. Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows, and a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. He suddenly understood. You're the Fire Clan's crown prince, Yan Er. Yan Er seemed to be startled for a moment and asked doubtfully, who are you? How do you know my name and identity? Without a doubt, his words were an admission of guilt. Ji Tianqing revealed a playful smile and said in his heart, so that's how it is. When he entered the cave just now, he found that the cave was filled with yellowish-brown flames, and even the walls and stones of the cave were burned red. Now he understood that the flames that filled the entire cave should be the wildfire that overflowed from Yan Er's wildfire-treasured body. Previously, Yin Yao had told him that Yan had been sleeping in the great formation set up by the sect master to suppress the conflict between the wildfire-treasured body and his innate bloodline. At that time, he didn't ask much and only thought that Yan Er was sleeping somewhere in the sect. Now he knew that Yan Er was sleeping in the boundless cave of Boundless Mountain. This is a spirit vein treasure land. The sect master must have used the power of the spirit vein to set up a great formation to help Yan Er suppress the wildfire and let him sleep here. Yan Er slept in the boundless cave for a year, and the wildfire overflowed, causing the entire cave to be filled with wildfire. Even the yellowish-brown flame that the golden-eyed white tiger used was the power of the wildfire. It seems that the golden-eyed white tiger has been entrenched in the boundless cave for a long time and has also absorbed the power of the wildfire. It has the faint intention of protecting Yan Er. In just a short moment, Ji Tianqing figured out the reason behind it. He smiled and said, Yan Er, I'm Ji Tianqing. I just joined the Sky Pillar sect this year and became a direct disciple of the sect master a few days ago. Ah. Are you also a disciple of our sect? And he's the sect leader's personal disciple? Yan Er's tone was full of surprise. How could this be fake? Ji Tianqing nodded and took out the Atlas Heaven token. Although Yan Er was wrapped in the giant egg, he could see the situation outside. Naturally, he also saw the Atlas Heaven token and no longer doubted his identity. Ji Tianqing smiled and said, Junior brother Yan Er, do you believe that I'm your senior brother now? Yan was silent for a moment and asked back, you just entered the sect this year, and I've been in the sect for 2 years. I entered the sect earlier than you, so you should call me senior brother, right? Ji Tianqing's mouth curled into a smile, Yan Er. The rules of our sect are not differentiated by the time you enter the sect, but by age. I'm older than you, so of course I'm your senior brother. Is there such a rule? Yan Er expressed his doubts and his tone was a little uncertain. The smile on Ji Tianqing's face grew wider and wider, but he said seriously, of course there is. This is a new rule of our sect. Yan Er, you've been sleeping in the boundless cave for a year, so it's understandable that you don't know this new rule. Come, let me hear you call me senior brother. Oh, I see. Yen responded thoughtfully and said, in that case, I'll call you second senior brother. Second senior brother. Ji Tianqing frowned slightly and instinctively resisted this title. Yen explained with a smile, sect master accepted the three of us as his personal disciples. Sister Yunyao is the eldest senior sister, so of course you're second senior brother. Ji Tianqing shook his head and said, the title second senior brother sounds a little awkward. You'd better call me senior brother Tianqing. N. Okay, senior brother Tianqing. Yen thought for a moment and accepted this title. Ji Tianqing smiled and nodded, junior brother Yen is so obedient. Yen chatted with him for a while and asked about the situation of sect master Chu Tianqing and Yunyao. Of course, he told him everything he knew and answered truthfully. Yen learned about the recent situation of sect master Yunyao, and his mood seemed to be much better, so he chatted with him. Senior brother Tianqing, why did you barge into the boundless cave? Ji Tianqing glanced at the golden-eyed white tiger not far away and explained, I came to Boundless Mountain to capture spiritual beasts and happened to meet that golden-eyed white tiger, so I chased it here. At this time, the golden-eyed white tiger had already retreated behind the stone pile, only revealing half of its head and eyes. It stared at him and the little black dragon indifferently. Looking at the golden-eyed white tiger's posture, it seemed that as long as he did something bad to Yen the golden-eyed white tiger would jump out to protect Yen Yen hurriedly dissuaded him, senior brother Tianqing, don't catch little white. In the year that I was asleep, little white had been guarding me in the cave. I can sense its aura. It has absorbed my wildfire and treats me as a good friend. Ji Tianqing nodded and said, yes, I saw it just now. This golden-eyed white tiger can also use the wildfire. It must have obtained an opportunity from you. Since it has been protecting you and treats you as a friend or master, then I will definitely not catch it. Yen, don't worry. Hearing his promise, Yen immediately said happily, thank you, senior brother Tianqing. Ji Tianqing stared at the huge gray-white egg and sized it up a few times, asking, Yen weren't you sleeping all this time? How did you wake up? I woke up a few days ago. Just now, I was circulating my energy to send out the wildfire when you came in. I see. Ji Tianqing nodded and asked again, why were you sleeping in the strange egg? What kind of egg is this? Senior brother Tianqing, this isn't a strange egg. Yen explained in a childish voice, this is the heavenly ice cocoon that sect master collected many precious materials and refined for me. Sect master wants to use the power of the spirit vein formation and the heavenly ice cocoon to help me expel the wildfire in my body. Ji Tianqing knew that although the wildfire treasured body was rare and precious, it was Yen shackles and torment. If he could expel the wildfire treasured body and only keep Yen two innate bloodlines, he could cultivate smoothly and become a martial arts genius. Thinking of this, Ji Tianqing asked again, Yen how are you now? When will you come out of your deep sleep? Yen said in a somewhat downcast tone, my current situation is much better than before. However, I don't know when I will come out. Maybe I will have to wait until the heavenly ice cocoon shatters. Ji Tianqing chatted with Yen for a while more and was about to leave. Yen, rest assured and recuperate here. I still have things to do, so I will leave first. Yen said with some reluctance, senior brother Tianqing, I am alone in the boundless cave with no one to talk to me. Can you come and see me often in the future? Ji Tianqing smiled and nodded in agreement, of course, no problem. You have to get better soon. After you come out, I will take you to eat delicious food. Yen was in a good mood and said with a smile, well, thank you, senior brother Tianqing. Then we have a deal. Ji Tianqing responded and then left the boundless cave with the little black dragon. After leaving the boundless cave, Ji Tianqing returned to the open space on the mountain peak to repair the damaged illusionary spirit array. Chapter 243. By the time Ji Tianqing repaired the damaged illusionary spirit array, it was already late at night. He and the little black dragon hid on a big tree at the edge of the open space, silently waiting for the arrival of their prey. Under the dark night sky, the mountain peak was silent. Only the constant roars of beasts could be heard from the distant mountains. Ji Tianqing laid on the tree branch and closed his eyes to rest. The little black dragon opened its big round eyes and stared at the surroundings of the illusionary spirit array. 4 hours passed by quickly. There was still no movement on the mountain peak, and there were no traces of spiritual beasts. It was only until dawn when the little black dragon was tired that there was movement on the mountain peak. A dust star lion with dark silver fur carefully came out from the forest and slowly approached the illusionary spirit array. This dust star lion was very muscular and was as big as a cow. Its fur was as hard as needles and was shining with a faint silver light. It looked around vigilantly and circled around a few millstone stones. After making sure there was no danger, it stepped into the illusionary spirit array. At this moment, Ji Tianqing had already noticed the dust star lion's movement and was staring at its movements. In the blink of an eye, the illusionary spirit array was triggered by the dust star lion. A golden light screen lit up and enveloped a radius of 20 meters. The dust star lion was trapped in the golden light screen and was suppressed by the invisible power of the array. It could not move at all and let out a low roar of panic and anger. Ji Tianqing jumped down from the big tree and hurried to the illusionary spirit array. He revealed a relieved smile. Dust Star Lion, 3rd level spiritual beast, it's you. This Dust Star Lion's ability was equivalent to a martial artist at level 7 or 8 of the mystic comprehending realm. Ji Tianqing was definitely not its match. However, he made use of the illusionary spirit array to trap the Dust Star Lion in the array and firmly suppress it. The Dust Star Lion struggled with all its might and its strength was constantly depleted. However, it was still unable to break free and escape. After 4 hours, the Dust Star Lion was suppressed to the point of being unable to speak. Its strength was finally exhausted and it laid on the ground weakly, panting continuously. At this moment, Ji Tianqing removed the illusionary spirit array and knocked the Dust Star Lion unconscious before keeping it in the 100 treasures brocade pouch. We've finally succeeded. Little black dragon, let's go. Ji Tianqing tied the 100 treasures brocade pouch to his belt and rode the little black dragon into the sky, returning to the Sky Pillar sect. When he returned to the Sky-bearing sect and rushed to the Spirit Beast Hall, it was already close to noon. He entered the main hall of the Spirit Beast Hall and waited for a while before Elder Wu and Deacon Xiang rushed over upon hearing the news. When Elder Wu saw him, his eyes were filled with astonishment. He asked in disbelief, Ji Tianqing, you've caught a rank 3 spirit beast in just 2 days. That's right. Ji Tianqing nodded calmly. He opened his 100 treasures brocade pouch and took out the still unconscious Dust Star Lion, placing it on the floor of the main hall. Elder Wu and Xiang Wu stared at the Dust Star Lion that was as large as a cow, its entire body glittering with silver light, and carefully sized it up. Ji Tianqing said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner, Elder Wu, I have already fulfilled my promise. Can you return Qianyu to me now? Elder Wu and Xiang Wu looked at each other and saw the astonishment in each other's eyes. Deacon Xiang, check this Dust Star Lion. If there's no problem, send it to the Beast Garden. Elder Wu wasn't in a hurry to reply to Ji Tianqing and first gave an order to Xiang Wu. Xiang Wu obeyed and carefully checked the Dust Star Lion's condition. When he confirmed that the Dust Star Lion was only knocked unconscious and didn't have any injuries, he got someone to carry the Dust Star Lion out of the main hall and rushed to the Beast Garden. Elder Wu also took the iron cage from the study room and opened it in front of Ji Tianqing, releasing Qianyu. Qian Yu had been locked up for 2 days and had been sleeping in the iron cage out of boredom. Now that it had finally regained its freedom, it excitedly flew out of the iron cage and returned to Ji Tianqing's side. It looked at Ji Tianqing with bright eyes and said with joy, "Old Ji, thank you. You're too kind. You must have suffered a lot these 2 days, right? Did you encounter any danger?" Ji Tianqing rubbed its little head and said with a smile, "What danger can there be? You, on the other hand, still know how to worry about me. I didn't dote on you for nothing." Elder Wu stroked his beard and nodded slightly. "Ji Tianqing, since you can fulfill your promise, then this matter is written off. You can leave now." "Many thanks, Elder Wu. Farewell." Ji Tianqing cupped his hands and bowed to him. He brought Qian Yu and left the main hall, returning to Tianqing courtyard. Elder Wu stood at the entrance of the main hall and looked at Ji Tianqing's back view. A complicated expression flashed across his eyes. Not long after, Xiang Wu also settled the Dust Star Lion and returned to the main hall. He walked to Elder Wu's side and hesitated for a moment before asking in a low voice, "Elder, we found hidden weapons and flying needles in the shadow leopard's body. Have you told Ji Tianqing about this?" Elder Wu shook his head and said with a complicated expression, "After you reported this to me, I went to have a private discussion with the sect leader. After the sect leader knew about this, he told me not to bother about the twists and turns in this matter and let Ji Tianqing solve it himself. After all, Ji Tianqing has only joined the sect for 3 months, and he's already become the sect leader's personal disciple. It's really too dazzling, and it'll definitely attract the jealousy and hostility of many people. Although there is a mystery behind this matter, there will definitely be more similar things happening in the future. It's impossible for the sect leader to personally help Ji Tianqing solve this problem. He can only rely on himself to solve it." Speaking of this, Elder Wu sighed and felt a little emotional. Just like the chief disciple Yunyao, she seems to have been doing well in the past few years and is famous in the Tianqin territory. She is respected by the younger generation of disciples. In fact, Yunyao has suffered a lot of criticism, jealousy, and targeting. She has also suffered a lot to get to where she is today. Xiang Wu frowned and asked in confusion, "But Ji Tianqing is too weak. He is far from being as powerful as Yunyao. How can he deal with the other inner disciples?" This is not something you and I can worry about." Elder Wu chuckled and said in a serious tone, "The sect leader is very confident in Ji Tianqing and has been paying attention to his every move. The sect leader also said that Ji Tianqing still has a long way to go and needs more training if he wants to become a powerhouse and convince the other genius disciples. As long as things don't go too far, the sect will not interfere in the competition between elite disciples." Judging from the sect leader's attitude towards Ji Tianqing, it seems like he thinks highly of him and wants to nurture him with all his might. After Xiang Wu heard that, he nodded with a serious expression and said, "I see. Ji Tianqing is only at the second stage of the mystic comprehending realm, but he can capture the Dust Star Lion so quickly. He is indeed extraordinary and has great potential." Chapter 244. After returning to Tianqing's courtyard, Ji Tianqing brought Qian Yu into the study room. He sat on the rattan chair and pondered with a serious expression. It was obvious that he had something on his mind. Qian Yu felt that it had gotten into trouble this time and that Ji Tianqing would definitely punish it. Hence, it took the initiative to massage Ji Tianqing's back and even gave him a fawning smile. "Old Ji, you have been busy at Boundless Mountain for 2 days. You must be tired. Let me massage your back for you." Ji Tianqing glanced at it and knocked on its little head. He said angrily, "Don't play this game with me. Do you think you can just coax me? There must be something fishy about this matter. You must have been set up by someone, you know." Qian Yu nodded and said with a resentful tone, "Yes, I have been thinking about this matter for the past 2 days, but I can't figure out who would set me up. This is so infuriating. It has always been me who set others up. No one has ever set me up. If I find out who it was that plotted against me, I'll make sure to return the favor tenfold. Ji Tianqing nodded and said calmly, Qian Yu, tell me everything that happened. The spirit beasts in the spirit beast garden have been tamed for many years. They are very intelligent and wouldn't go crazy for no reason. Qian Yu agreed with this point and felt that something was fishy. Hence, it recounted everything from the beginning to the end. After it finished, Ji Tianqing frowned and asked, what is the name of the female disciple who brought you to the spirit beast garden? Is she a disciple of the spirit beast garden? Qian Yu blinked and asked, Old Ji, are you suspecting that she set me up? Ji Tianqing nodded and said, yes, it might be possible. Qian Yu recalled carefully and said with certainty, Old Ji, I don't think it was her. I accidentally barged into Spirit Beast Peak and met that female disciple. She couldn't have known that I was going to the Spirit Beast Garden and waited for me there, right? Furthermore, very few people in the sect know of my existence. That female disciple didn't even know of my identity and my relationship with you. Ji Tianqing's frown deepened as he muttered to himself, then who could it be? Qian Yu's large eyes looked around and analyzed for a moment. Suddenly, a glint flashed in its eyes. That's right, I think I know who did it. In the Sky Sect, only Old Man Xiang and the Sword Slave from the Great Peace Palace know of my relationship with you. But they wouldn't do it. Apart from that, Bai also knows. Moreover, he hates you, so I'm guessing that Bai Wuqian is the culprit behind this. After listening to Qian Yu's analysis and conjecture, Ji Tianqing was stunned and his eyes turned gloomy. He thought for a moment and nodded. That's right, Qian Yu, your analysis is very reasonable. Bai Wuqian, that despicable and treacherous man, has he started to make his move on me? He muttered softly. His eyes surged with a cold light, and his aura turned icy cold. Qian Yu was also filled with anger. Its eyes were cold as it cursed, damn Bai Wuqian. If this king recovers his strength, I will tear him into pieces and eat him. Right at this moment, the maidservant Xiao Shuang's voice came from the courtyard. Senior brother Ji, eldest senior sister is here to visit. She says she has something to discuss with you. Hearing Xiao Shuang's words, Ji Tianqing restrained his anger and raised his eyebrows. Eldest senior sister is here to look for me. He stood up and walked out of the study room. When he arrived at the courtyard's entrance, he saw Yun Yao standing at the entrance, waiting quietly. Ji Tianqing walked to her side and greeted with a smile, eldest senior sister, you are here. Yun Yao nodded slightly at him and said in a calm voice, I came here once yesterday, but you were not in the courtyard. Ji Tianqing smiled apologetically. Eldest senior sister, what can I do for you? Yun Yao nodded. Let's talk inside. Ji Tianqing made an inviting gesture and led her into the courtyard. They went through the small courtyard and into the study room. Yun Yao was surprised to see Qian Yu as soon as she entered the study room. She sized up Qian Yu and then turned to Ji Tianqing. Junior brother Tianqing, is this your pet? Yes, her name is Qian Yu. Ji Tianqing nodded with a smile. He didn't need to say anything. Qian Yu flew to Yun Yao and greeted her cleverly. Imitating Ji Tianqing, Qian Yu cupped its fists and bowed to Yun Yao. Nice to meet you, eldest senior sister. Qian Yu said in a sweet voice. Eldest senior sister, you are so beautiful, just like a fairy from heaven. Even though Yun Yao was a calm person who never showed her emotions on her face, she couldn't help but feel surprised. She extended a slender finger and tapped Qian Yu's head. Her lips curled into a faint smile. What a cute little guy. It can talk. Interesting. Ji Tianqing looked at her beautiful face from the side. Seeing the faint smile on her face, he felt that she was extremely beautiful. As far as he could remember, this was the second time that Yun Yao had smiled. For an otherworldly fairy like her, even if she only revealed a faint smile, it was enough to cause the downfall of a city. However, the smile on her face quickly disappeared. She said to Ji Tianqing seriously, "Junior brother Tianqing, I have something important to tell you today." Qian Yu cleverly shut its mouth and lay on the table obediently. It didn't want to disturb them. Ji Tianqing nodded solemnly. "Please speak, eldest senior sister." Yun Yao said in a serious tone, "The 8th sect conference will be held in 3 days. It will be held at the Stellar Peak. At that time, the sect leaders and chief disciples of the various sects will be present to discuss matters regarding the ancient star realm and exchange information with each other. There has been some progress in the Dragon Mountain tomb. Sect Master wants to go to the Dragon Mountain personally to study the formation. So, Sect Master has handed this matter to you and me. We will attend the 8th sect conference on his behalf." Yun Yao briefly introduced the location and purpose of the 8th sect conference. She also conveyed Chu Tianqing's order. Ji Tianqing was stunned. His face was full of disbelief. Isn't the 8th sect conference the highest level conference in the Tianshan region? Sect Master is not attending such a grand conference. He sent you and me instead. If he hadn't heard it with his own ears, he wouldn't have believed it was true. Yun Yao was the chief disciple of the Sky Pillar sect. It was normal for her to attend the 8th sect conference. However, he had only been in the sect for a few months and had only become the sect master's disciple for less than half a month. Yet, he had to attend such an important conference on behalf of the sect master. Eldest senior sister, isn't this a bit too childish? When the time comes, the sect masters and sect masters of the other sects will definitely be very dissatisfied, right? Yun Yao nodded slightly and said calmly, "When I heard the sect master's order, I was also in disbelief." Chapter 245. It wasn't that Ji Tianqing was belittling himself, but he wasn't qualified to attend the 8th sect meeting yet. Moreover, sect leader Chu Tianqing wasn't going to attend the meeting, and he and Yun Yao were the representatives. To him, this was a great honor, but it was also a great challenge and training. However, Chu Tianqing's order obviously had a deeper meaning, and he couldn't refuse, so he could only obey. After discussing this matter, Yun Yao gave him a few words of advice, then left. "Junior brother Tianqing, prepare well for the next 2 days. In 3 days, we'll be heading to Stellar Peak." Ji Tianqing sent Yun Yao out of the door and watched her leave, his eyes and expression a little serious. After he returned to the study, Qian Yu came over excitedly and said with a smile, "Old Ji, you're in the limelight now. Hee, you just became the sect leader's disciple a few days ago, and you're going to represent the sect leader at the 8th sect meeting. That's amazing. When the news spreads and the other disciples know about this, they'll be so jealous that they'll vomit blood, right?" Ji Tianqing smiled and nodded, "Yes, this news is really amazing. No one would believe it. Those elite disciples will be so jealous that their eyes will turn red. The sect leader must have his reasons for making this arrangement, but it's a test for me." Qian Yu smiled disapprovingly and comforted, "Old Ji, why do you care so much? If the sect leader wants you to go, just go. Also, there's big-breasted sister. Ahem, eldest senior sister to accompany you. Many disciples will go crazy with jealousy for this kind of luck." Ji Tianqing nodded as his lips curled into a smile. Indeed, even if he didn't know much about the matters of the sect and hadn't attended the 8th sect meeting, Yun Yao had experience. With Yun Yao as his companion, he had nothing to fear. After a while, Ji Tianqing got up and left the study, walking out of the courtyard. Qian Yu quickly followed him and asked, "Old Ji, where are you going?" Ji Tianqing said in a low voice, "Bai Wuchen tricked me, and I can't pretend that nothing happened. Naturally, I have to pay him a visit." Qian Yu said eagerly, "I want to go too. I want to give that bastard a good scolding." However, Ji Tianqing waved his hand and said, "No, you'll stay at home." Although Qian Yu was a little reluctant, he didn't want to go against his words, so he stayed in Tianqing's courtyard. A few moments later, Ji Tianqing arrived at the entrance of the inconstant department. Tianqing's courtyards. Tianqing was the sect's courtyard. The disciples sts at tts rushed Tianqing ts. The disciple bowed and asked respectfully, "Senior brother, are you here to visit senior brother Bai?" Tianqing nodded and said expressionlessly, "Tell Bai Wuchen that Tianqing is looking for him." The disciple could tell that Bai Wuchen didn't come with good intentions, so he nodded silently and left to report the news. Not long after, Bai Wuchen came out of the courtyard and came to the entrance. He seemed to be in a good mood when he saw Tianqing, and there was even a playful smile on his face. "Junior brother Ji, don't you have to cultivate today? Why did you come to visit me?" Tianqing glanced at him and said expressionlessly, "Bai Wuchen, you don't have to pretend. You know what you've done." Bai Wuchen's smile widened. He pretended to be confused and asked, "Oh. Junior Marshal brother Ji, did you come to my impermanence courtyard to denounce me?" "Ha, ha, I'd like to hear what I've done to make you so angry." Tianqing shouted, "Bai Wuchen, 2 days ago, when my pet Qian Yu went to the spirit beast garden, did you secretly set it up?" Bai Wuchen looked at him with a smile and said in a mocking tone, "Ha, ha, what evidence do you have to prove that it was me who set that shadow leopard off in a frenzy? Maybe it's because your pet is too hateful, so the shadow leopard attacked it to get rid of a pest for the people." Tianqing shouted, "Ha, ha, Bai Wuchen, how do you know that it was the shadow leopard that attacked Qian Yu? This matter hasn't been made public yet. Only the elders and deacons of the spirit beast garden know about it. If that's the case, are you admitting that you were the one who did it?" "Ha, ha, so what if I did?" Bai Wuchen sneered and asked in a proud tone, "Do you have any evidence? Who will be the judge and seek justice for you?" Seeing that Tianqing was silent and cold, Bai Wuchen said in a serious tone, "Tianqing, I have warned you. The faction has its rules. The inner sect is not as simple as the outer sect. If you want to survive in the inner sect, you must keep your tail between your legs. Unless you're strong enough, I have countless ways to play you to death. So what if you're the faction master's disciple? I can still ruin your reputation and kick you out of the Sky Pillar sect." Bai Wuchen finally dropped his disguise and revealed his true colors. He looked at Tianqing with a proud face and said in a contemptuous tone, "Tianqing, this is just the beginning. There will be all kinds of accidents in the future, besides, many people want to kick you out of the Sky Pillar sect. Even if I don't do anything, there will be many others who will deal with you." Tianqing looked at him indifferently. Suddenly, the corners of his mouth rose, forming a mocking sneer. "Ha, the faction's rules. If I remember correctly, there is a rule in the faction. When the faction's disciples have an irreconcilable conflict, they can challenge each other to a duel in the inner sect plaza to resolve their grudges." Bai Wuchen was stunned when he heard this. When he came back to his senses, the smile on his face became even more contemptuous. He sneered and said, "Tianqing, you're not stupid enough to challenge me, are you? Ha! What a joke! With that meager strength of yours, I can easily crush you. You still dare to seek your own death." Tianqing's eyes were still as cold as ice, and the sneer on his face did not fade. "Aren't you just 4th on the heaven leaderboard and 8th stage Tongxian stage? Bai Wuchen, I want to challenge you to a duel. I want to duel you in front of all the disciples at the Heaven List tournament next month." Bai Wuchen's voice was cold as ice. "The faction's rules? Then I'll follow the faction's rules and defeat you fair and square. I'll trample you under my feet. When the time comes, I'll let you know that you're just a contemptible and despicable person. You're just a clown." Bai Wuchen was stunned. With a ferocious expression, he sneered, "Tianqing, you must be crazy. Where did you get the courage and confidence to challenge me? Ha! Then let's make a bet. Whoever loses will be a servant disciple for a year." Chapter 246. Bai Wuchen had his own schemes, but Tianqing did not bother to retaliate with a scheme. He wanted to use an open strategy to deal with Bai Wuchen. He wanted to defeat Bai Wuchen fair and square. Even though he was only at LV2 Tongxian realm, Bai Wuchen was ranked 4th on the heaven leaderboard and was at LV8 Tongxian realm. In Bai Wuchen's opinion, this was a ridiculous and overconfident challenge. However, Ji Tianqing knew what he was doing. He was confident that he could defeat Bai Wuchen in the heaven leaderboard competition next month and make a name for himself. After challenging Bai Wuchen, Ji Tianqing ignored his various reactions and turned to leave Wuchang Yard for the inner court square. Bai Wuchen stared at his back and laughed in disdain and surprise. Ha ha ha, Ji Tianqing, oh Ji Tianqing, to think that I treated you as an opponent and planned how to deal with you slowly. I didn't expect you to be so stupid to challenge me and give me such a great opportunity. In the heaven leaderboard competition next month, I will make sure you suffer a crushing defeat and become the biggest joke in Tianjin region. Ji Tianqing ignored Bai Wuchen's taunts and headed to the inner court square expressionlessly. The inner court square was located at the peak of towering Sky Peak. It was surrounded by a magnificent palace. The square wasn't very big, only about 300 meters in radius. Normally, very few disciples would gather here. However, this was the place where the inner court released news and missions and held gatherings. There was a high platform in the north of the square that was paved with marble. Usually, if there was a celebration or a meeting, the elders would stand on the platform to host it. At the edge of the platform stood a black stone tablet that was 10 meters tall. There was a mysterious array in the tablet that made it look like a huge screen that could display words. In the past, when the inner court released missions and news, the elders and deacons would send the information to the stone tablet and display it in big, shining white words. When disciples wanted to challenge each other, they could also enter the information on the stone tablet and issue a challenge letter in public. The content of the challenge letter could be displayed on the stone tablet for 3 days. After 3 days, it would disappear automatically. Of course, in the past 2 years, such a thing had almost never happened in the inner sect. Even if there were grudges between the inner disciples, they would try their best to endure it. They would fight endlessly in the dark while pretending to be harmonious on the surface. Therefore, in the past 2 years, the inner sect had been relatively peaceful, and there had not been any disturbances. But today was different. Ji Tianqing was destined to break the tranquility of the inner sanctum and stir up a huge storm. He stepped onto the high platform, stretched out his right hand, and pressed it against the black stone tablet. He poured his true essence into the stone tablet, activating the array within the tablet. Then, he used his spiritual sense to input information into the formation and issued a challenge. After a short while, dozens of clear white words appeared on the stone tablet. I, Ji Tianqing, challenge elite disciple Bai Wuchen to a duel at the heaven ranking tournament next month. The loser is willing to become a menial disciple for 1 year. After a long while, Ji Tianqing withdrew his hand when the contents of the letter of challenge were completely displayed on the stone tablet. He glanced at the words on the stone tablet, turned around, and left the inner square. When he returned to Tianqing courtyard, an inner disciple passed by the square and inadvertently glanced at the stone tablet on the high platform. Every time the disciple passed by the inner square, he would habitually glance at the stone tablet to see if the message on the tablet had changed. When he saw the words on the stone tablet, his eyes widened in disbelief. Ji Tianqing. Isn't he the new sect leader's disciple? He wants to challenge senior brother Bai Wuchen. And it's at the heaven ranking tournament next month. If he loses, he will have to be a menial disciple for 1 year. Oh my God! This is unbelievable. The sect leader's disciple issued a challenge to an elite disciple in public. Ever since I entered the inner sect, I've never encountered such a thing. The inner disciple growled in disbelief. He quickly left the square and rushed back to his residence excitedly. He shouted a few times in the courtyard. After attracting a few inner disciples, he could not wait to spread the news. When the disciples heard the news, they were shocked and found it unbelievable. Some of them could not believe it and quickly rushed to the square to see the challenge letter with their own eyes. When the disciples saw the challenge letter on the stone tablet, they were ecstatic. They rushed back to their residence excitedly and spread the news. In just 4 to 6 hours, the news that the sect leader's disciple, Ji Tianqing, was going to challenge the elite disciple, Bai Wuqian, spread among the inner disciples. Soon, dozens of white-robed disciples gathered in the square. They gathered in groups of 3 to 5 and discussed excitedly. Even the deacons in the inner sect were alarmed and rushed to the square to see what was going on. When they saw the challenge letter on the stone tablet, their expressions became very complicated. They left the square to report the news to the elders. In an instant, the entire inner sect was alarmed. Countless disciples were in an uproar. From the elders and deacons to the hundreds of inner disciples, everyone was discussing the matter enthusiastically. In the evening, the afterglow of the setting sun shone on the inner sect square at the peak of the mountain. The dozens of white words on the stone tablet were dyed with a layer of gold by the setting sun. It was even more dazzling. Just as the disciples were discussing animatedly, 2 young disciples in white robes with dignified appearances walked into the square together. The 2 of them came to the middle of the square and looked up at the challenge letter on the stone tablet with a playful smile. When the surrounding disciples saw the 2 of them, they were immediately in awe and envy. They whispered to each other. "Look, it's senior brother Chen Su and senior brother Tang Yilua." He, Chen Su and Tang Yilua are also alarmed. Chen Su is second on the heaven list and Tang Yilua is third. Their strength is similar to Bai Wuqian's. Ji Tianqing entered the inner sect and became the sect leader's disciple. He must have angered senior brother Bai Wuqian and caused a conflict between the 2 of them, which led to the duel. Yes, not only is senior brother Bai angry, but senior brother Chen and senior brother Tang are also not convinced. I wonder what they are thinking now. Although the eyes of the inner sect disciples in the square were focused on Chen Su and Tang Yilua, they were very respectful to them. However, the numerous disciples were very respectful towards the 2 of them. They only quietly watched from afar and did not come forward to greet them. After reading the challenge letter on the stone tablet, Chen Su and Tang Yilua left the square and walked into the depths of the palace. On the way, Tang Yilua said with a playful smile, I didn't expect the new sect leader's disciple, Ji Tianqing, to be such a reckless fool. He just entered the inner sect for a few days and he's already fighting with Bai Wuqian. They even went to the extent of issuing a challenge letter. Chapter 247. Tang Yilua's eyes glinted coldly as he muttered under his breath. That Ji Tianqing's strength is weak and he's so reckless. I don't know how he got lucky and became the sect leader's personal disciple. Chen Su smiled and said mockingly, Junior brother Tang, you can't say that. That Ji Tianqing might not be a reckless idiot. He might be a fearless warrior who charges forward recklessly. The elite disciples of the inner sanctum have been secretly competing with each other all these years. They don't dare to fight openly and have to pretend to be harmonious on the surface. Now, Ji Tianqing has appeared out of nowhere and caused such a big commotion as soon as he entered the inner sanctum. This kid has only been in the inner sanctum for 3 months. He doesn't even know the rules and situation of the inner sanctum, yet he dares to challenge Bai Wuqian in public. His courage is commendable. This is a good thing for us. We can sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. We can watch him and Bai Wuqian fight until both of them suffer. Tang Yilua frowned and thought for a moment before nodding. If that's the case, Ji Tianqing is a troublemaker. It's a pity that he's too weak. How can he be a match for Bai Wuqian? I'd like to see how he'll end up after being defeated and humiliated by Bai Wuqian. Chen Su nodded and sneered meaningfully. When that time comes, I'm afraid he won't be able to keep his position as the sect leader's personal disciple. Tang Yilua looked expectant and said proudly, moreover, Bai Wuqian will definitely leave a bad impression on the sect leader because of this. If that's the case, Bai Wuchen will lose 800 of his own men to kill 1,000 of his enemies. We'll have one less competitor. He, that's right. Chen Su nodded again and the smile on his face became even more smug. Under a towering tree in Wuchang Yard, Bai Wuchen was sitting on a stone bench with a teacup in his hand and a smile on his face as he slowly sipped on his tea. Hao Meng sat opposite him with a complicated expression. He looked like he wanted to say something but stopped himself. After a while, Bai Wuchen put down his teacup and looked at Hao Meng with a smile. Junior brother Hao, you already know about the letter of challenge. Hao Meng nodded and smiled bitterly. Ji Tianqing's challenge letter will be displayed on the stone tablet for 3 days. Now, the entire inner sect knows about it. I say, senior brother Bai, Ji Tianqing has already issued a challenge to you in front of everyone, how can you still laugh? Why are you still leisurely drinking tea? Bai Wuchen raised his eyebrows. His pale and thin face flushed with excitement. He raised the teacup in his hand and said in a playful tone, that idiot walked right into my trap. Why shouldn't I laugh? Originally, I had already taken him seriously and treated him as my opponent. I even planned how to deal with him. In the end, I realized that he was still a country bumpkin from a small country. Does he think that he can look down on everyone just because he was lucky enough to become the sect leader's disciple? And the result? Wasn't he still toyed with by me? He was so angry that he lost his mind and issued a challenge to me in front of everyone. I'm going to trample on him in front of everyone in the heaven roll competition next month. I'm going to make him suffer a crushing defeat. I'm going to make him crawl away like a stray dog and become a lowly servant. Consider this cup of tea as an early celebration. After saying that, he raised his head and drank the tea in his cup in one gulp. Hao Meng frowned slightly and asked doubtfully, Senior brother Bai, what did you do to Ji Tianqing? How did you force him to issue a challenge to you in front of everyone? Bai Wuchen smiled coldly and said in a low voice, I just used a little trick to make him suffer a little. He was so angry that he came knocking on my door to issue a challenge. Junior brother Hao, tell me, how can a brute with such weak strength and no shrewdness fight with me? How can he be favored by eldest senior sister? Hao Meng frowned and did not answer. There were some things that he did not want to say, but it did not mean that he did not have any opinions. He could clearly feel that ever since he met Ji Tianqing, Bai Wuchen had become more and more narrow-minded. He had also become unreasonable. However, he knew the reason for Bai Wuchen's change, so he could not say anything. After a long silence, he said in a low voice, Senior brother Bai, I went to visit eldest senior sister today. 3 days later, the sect leader will not attend the 8th sect meeting. Instead, he will let eldest senior sister and Ji Tianqing attend in his place. What? Bai Wuchen's body trembled, and the hand holding the teacup trembled. His face instantly darkened, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Impossible. That's impossible. The 8th sect meeting is such an important meeting that even you and I are not qualified to attend. How can the sect leader let Ji Tianqing attend? Bai Wuchen's face was ashen, and his tone was cold. He obviously could not accept this news. Seeing him like this, Hao Meng could not help but sigh. Senior brother Bai, don't you understand? The reason why the sect leader values Ji Tianqing so much is not as simple as his contributions to the sect. The sect leader is grooming him as his successor. Now that you and Ji Tianqing have fallen out, you're like fire and water. The letter of challenge cannot be withdrawn. Senior brother Bai, even if you defeat Ji Tianqing in front of everyone at the Heaven List tournament next month, did you really win? Ji Tianqing will be relegated to being a servant, but you've also offended the sect leader. The real winners are Chen Su and Tang Yiluo. After listening to Hao Meng's analysis, Bai Wuchen's face darkened, and his hands trembled in anger. His eyes were fixed on the stone table as he muttered to himself, impossible. As long as I defeat Ji Tianqing, I'll prove that I'm better than him and more qualified to be the sect leader's disciple. The position of the sect leader is mine, and so is eldest senior sister. I won't lose. Seeing this, Hao Meng sighed helplessly. He stood up and patted Bai Wuqian's shoulder. Senior brother Bai, you'd better calm down and think about it. I still have something to do, so I'll take my leave first. After saying that, Hao Meng turned and left Wuchang Yard. Bai Wuqian was still frozen in place with an ugly expression. He sat there for a long time without getting up. 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. In these 2 days, the entire inner sect was in an uproar. Everyone was talking about the duel between Ji Tianqing and Bai Wuqian. In fact, the news spread out of the inner sect, and even many of the outer sect disciples knew about it. The outer sect disciples were unfamiliar with the inner sect disciples, but they knew Ji Tianqing very well. Especially after the Dragon Mountain tournament and the apprenticeship ceremony, many outer sect disciples were proud of him and worshipped him. When the outer sect disciples heard that Ji Tianqing was going to challenge Bai Wuqian, they were in an uproar and discussed it excitedly. Chapter 248. On the morning of the 3rd day, Ji Tianqing washed up and left the Tianqing courtyard. Today was the day that he and Yunyao had agreed to go to the Stellar Peak for the meeting. In the past 2 days, the sect was bustling with noise and excitement. Everyone was talking about his challenge to Bai Wuqian. He had become the center of attention. However, he was very calm. He had been cultivating in seclusion in the Tianqing courtyard and working hard to improve his strength. When the sun rose, he walked down the towering sky peak and came to the square at the foot of the mountain. Yunyao was already waiting for him in the square on the spirit crane. Seeing that he had arrived, Yunyao nodded slightly and said calmly, "Come on up." Ji Tianqing originally planned to ride on Qianyu. Seeing this, he decisively jumped onto the back of the spirit crane. The spirit crane let out a clear cry. It flapped its wings and flew into the sky, heading northeast. Ji Tianqing and Yunyao stood side by side on the back of the spirit crane. They looked ahead calmly. After a moment of silence, Yunyao suddenly asked, "Junior brother Tianqing, why did you suddenly challenge junior brother Bai?" Ji Tianqing tilted his head and looked at her face. A smile appeared on his face. Instead of answering, he asked, "Eldest senior sister, what do you think?" Yunyao looked ahead and said calmly, "After the news spread, the sect was in an uproar. Almost everyone thinks that you are overestimating yourself and asking for humiliation. However, the you I know is not a reckless person. You must have your reasons for doing this." After saying that, she turned to look at Ji Tianqing. Her clear eyes revealed a look of anticipation. Ji Tianqing looked into her eyes and nodded. "That's right. Eldest senior sister, you know me best. I have only been in the sect for 3 months and I have already become the sect leader's disciple. I even entered the inner sect directly. This is a treatment that all the disciples are jealous of. I have also become the target of public criticism. Many disciples have criticized and slandered me. They even targeted and framed me. Many people want to see me make a fool of myself. They want to see me fall from the clouds to hell. Right now, I'm in the eye of the storm. If I take one step forward, I'll be facing a mountain of blades and a sea of flames. If I take one step back, I'll be in the abyss of hell." At this point, his expression became solemn, and his tone became low and firm. Just as eldest senior sister said to me before, it's useless to compromise when faced with the doubts, slander, and targeting of others. It will only allow others to humiliate you even more unscrupulously. Only when you are strong enough can you make others shut their mouths. Let all the doubts and slander become reverence and praise. Bai Wuqian took the initiative to provoke me and set me up. Then, I'll use him as a stepping stone. I'll trample him under my feet and use that as a warning to the other disciples who harbor ill intentions. When Ji Tianqing said those words in a confident and firm tone, his entire body faintly exuded a sense of confidence and domineering aura. Yunyao stared at him. A hint of a smile flashed across her clear eyes. Junior brother Tianqing, you have changed a lot in just a few months. Although she did not say it explicitly, Ji Tianqing had grown very quickly in the past few months. However, Ji Tianqing also understood what she meant. The two of them looked at each other, and there was a tacit understanding between them. Yunyao nodded slightly and said, Junior brother Tianqing, you are right. However, the Heaven List tournament is only slightly more than a month away. You have to work hard. Ji Tianqing nodded and said with a solemn expression, of course. The challenge letter has already been issued. I can only win this battle. I cannot lose. Yunyao looked at him deeply and did not say anything else. However, her attitude was, of course, to support Ji Tianqing. She looked forward to that day. Before they knew it, 12 hours had passed. The spirit crane carried Ji Tianqing and Yunyao across thousands of mountains and rivers. After flying for nearly 2,000 miles, they finally arrived at the stellar peak. The stellar peak was located in the center of the stellar ancient realm. It was a peak that was 5,000 meters tall. In the entire stellar ancient realm, the stellar peak was not only the tallest, but also the most majestic and precipitous mountain peak. If one stood on the peak of the stellar peak on a starry night, one would feel as if they were very close to the sky. One could reach out and touch the stars in the sky. That was how the name Stellar Peak came about. The 8 great sects were scattered all over the stellar ancient realm. They rarely contacted each other. However, every 1 or 2 years, the great sects would jointly convene a meeting of the 8 great sects to discuss important matters. The location of the meeting was, of course, the stellar peak in the center of the ancient realm. On the peak of the stellar peak, there was a huge stellar platform. It was grand and majestic. Not only could one admire the stars in the sky, but it was also a martial arts arena. Every 3 years, the elite disciples of the 8 great sects would compete in public on the stellar platform to compete for the rankings on the stellar ranking list. The stellar ranking list was the ranking list of the geniuses of the 8 great sects and the genius ranking list of the entire Tianjin region. 2 years ago, Yunyao had defeated the geniuses of the various sects on the stellar platform with her sword. She ranked first on the stellar ranking list and became famous in the Tianjin region. Before they set off, Ji Tianqing had read up on the relevant information and understood the situation of the stellar peak and the 8 great sects. It was evening and the afterglow of the setting sun shone on the ground, illuminating half of the stellar peak. Ji Tianqing stood on the back of the spirit crane and looked down at the stellar peak. The peak, which was 5,000 meters tall, stood between the heavens and the earth like a dark brown pagoda. The mountainside and the peak were shrouded by layers of white clouds and thick fog, making it difficult for people to see clearly. The peak was empty all around. It was not surrounded by other mountains, nor was it connected to other mountains. It was really a lonely peak. But it was because of this that he could feel the vastness and dominance of the stellar peak. The mountain walls of the stellar peak were very steep and almost straight. It was difficult for ordinary martial artists to climb up the mountain. Probably only the experts and powerhouses who were riding on the flying birds of spirit beasts could directly land on the mountain peak. After a while, the spirit crane flew to the sky above the stellar peak. After circling once, it slowly landed on the peak. When the spirit crane passed through the layers of white clouds and was about to land on the peak, Ji Tianqing could see clearly that the peak was flat and there was an open space with a radius of 1,000 meters. That open space was the stellar platform. The ground was paved with green boulders and a star map was carved on it. Looking down from the sky, the star map was lifelike. It was as if there were thousands of stars shining under the setting sun. There was a 2-meter-tall black stone fence around the stellar platform. Outside the fence was a bottomless abyss shrouded in white clouds. If a timid person stood at the edge of the stellar platform, even if they held on to the black stone fence, their legs would tremble in fear. Swoosh! The spirit crane finally landed on the stellar platform. Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao jumped down. After landing, the two of them looked around and saw that there were already two women in the corner, quietly waiting. Chapter 249. The two women, one old and one young, were at the corner of the star platform, overlooking the sea of clouds and the cliff below. The old woman was a silver-haired old woman wearing a purple robe and holding a jasper walking stick. Although her body was somewhat stooped, her spirit was hale and hearty. Her entire body was surrounded by an invisible aura of righteousness, making people feel deep veneration. There was no doubt that this white-haired old woman was a martial arts powerhouse. Moreover, she was a powerhouse who cultivated the righteous path of cultivation. Standing beside her was a young woman in her early 20s. The woman's eyebrows and eyes were like a painting. Her face was dignified and beautiful, and her entire body exuded a gentle and elegant temperament. She was tall and wore a long white dress. She was like a simple and elegant beauty who had walked out of a painting. Although this white-dressed woman's appearance and temperament were slightly inferior to Yun Yao's, she was still a very rare beauty. While Ji Tianqing was sizing up the two women, Yun Yao also used her spiritual sense to secretly introduce them to him. That is the Heart Moon sect master, Granny Shui Yu, and her chief disciple, Feng Min. The Heart Moon sect and our sect have been friends for generations. Junior Martial Brother Tianqing, let's go over and greet them. After saying that, Yun Yao brought Ji Tianqing over to Granny Shui Yu and Feng Min. When they arrived, Yun Yao bowed to Granny Shui Yu and said respectfully, Skypillar sect's disciple, Yun Yao, greets Granny Shui Yu. Ji Tianqing also bowed and also greeted Granny Shui Yu. Granny Shui Yu and Feng Min turned to look at Yun Yao and revealed gentle smiles. Feng Min also bowed in a dignified manner and greeted senior martial sister Yun Yao. Granny Shui Yu nodded slightly to Yun Yao and asked with a kind expression, Yun Yao, who is this beside you? Yun Yao quickly explained, Granny Shui Yu, this is Junior Martial Brother Tianqing, sect master's new personal disciple. Oh, so it's him. Granny Shui Yu nodded and sized up Ji Tianqing with a smile. Not bad, little fellow. Your future is limitless. Ji Tianqing could feel Granny Shui Yu's goodwill, so he smiled and cupped his hands, humbly saying, Granny is too kind. After exchanging a few pleasantries, Granny Shui Yu asked Yun Yao in confusion, Yun Yao, why are you and Tianqing the only ones here? When will sect leader Chu arrive? Yun Yao said calmly, Grandma, sect leader Shizhuan has other important matters to attend to, so he can't participate in this meeting. Therefore, he sent me and junior brother Tianqing to represent him. So that's how it is. Granny Shui Yu nodded as a strange light flashed in her eyes. She seemed to have thought of something. She smiled kindly at Feng Min and said, Feng Min, you, Yun Yao, and Tianqing are all young people. You can get closer and interact with each other. After she finished speaking, she turned around and left. She stood at a corner of the star platform while leaning on her jade walking stick, silently pondering something. Feng Min cupped her hands to show that she obeyed. Then, she walked to Yun Yao and Ji Tianqing's side and started chatting with them. The three of them stood at the edge of the cliff, looking down at the sea of clouds and the cliff. They chatted calmly, asking each other about the recent situation and talking about some interesting things in the sect. Yun Yao's temperament had always been cold and she was not good at chatting. Ji Tianqing was also not a good talker. He did not know much about the affairs of the two sects, so he rarely took the initiative to interrupt. Most of the time, it was Feng Min who took the initiative to chat with the two of them and find some topics to talk about. Feng Min's demeanor was dignified and she spoke well. Moreover, her attitude towards the two of them was very kind, which left a very good impression on Ji Tianqing. Not long after, another huge fiery red bird flew over from the distant sky and landed on the star platform. Two people jumped off the back of the bird. One was a middle-aged man in a purple robe. He was tall and sturdy and had a dignified bearing. The other person was a young man. He had a dignified appearance and his footsteps were vigorous. He was obviously an elite genius of the younger generation. Yun Yao used a secret sound transmission technique to introduce them to Ji Tianqing. That's the sect master and chief disciple of the Thousand Autumns sect, Qiao Xian. The Thousand Autumns sect is quite far from our sect, so the relationship between the two sects is not very good. Hearing this, Ji Tianqing knew what was going on in his heart. At this time, Qiao Xian took the initiative to walk over. He showed a gentle and refined smile and took the initiative to greet Yun Yao and Feng Min. Qiao Xian greets senior sister Yun Yao and junior sister Feng Min. It's been 2 years since we last met. Senior sister Yun Yao and junior sister Feng Min are becoming more and more beautiful like fairies. You don't look like mortals anymore. Qiao Xian praised Yun Yao and Feng Min as soon as he met them. He completely ignored Ji Tianqing, who was beside the two women. Unfortunately, his glib tongue could not win the two women's sweet smiles. The two women's expressions were calm. They calmly cupped their hands in return and did not say anything else. Qiao Xian seemed to be deliberately looking for a topic. He sized up Ji Tianqing and asked with a puzzled expression, "Junior brother, you look very unfamiliar. May I ask who you are?" Ji Tianqing looked at him expressionlessly. He cupped his hands and said, "I am Ji Tianqing, the disciple of the Sky Pillar sect master." "Oh, he. Junior brother Ji, I am the chief disciple of the Thousand Autumns sect, Qiao Xian. You can just call me senior brother Qiao." Qiao Xian gave a perfunctory reply. His gaze then landed on Yun Yao and Feng Min. "Senior sister Yun Yao, it's been 2 years. How have you been?" Everyone could see that Qiao Xian was obviously trying to get close to and pester Yun Yao. Feng Min and Ji Tianqing both frowned slightly. They felt that Qiao Xian was too tactless. However, Yun Yao's expression did not change. She looked at Qiao Xian indifferently and asked, "Of course I've been well. But junior brother Qiao, have you recovered from your injuries from that sword strike?" Qiao Xian's expression changed slightly when he heard this. He was so embarrassed that he did not know how to respond. 2 years ago, when he first met Yun Yao in the star list ranking battle, he had a crush on her and shamelessly pestered her. Yun Yao's attitude towards him was indifferent. During the ranking battle, she defeated him in 3 moves and stabbed Qiao Xian with her sword. Of course, swords and sabers had no eyes in the arena, so it was natural for him to be injured. However, when Yun Yao brought up this matter, Qiao Xian felt embarrassed. He did not have the face to continue pestering her and hurriedly left after saying goodbye. Not long after, the sun set and night was about to fall. One after another, spirit beasts and birds carried the sect masters and chief disciples of the various sects to the star platform. Every time someone arrived at the star platform, Yun Yao would secretly introduce the other party's identity to Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing silently noted it down. In addition to the Heart Moon sect, there was also the 6 He sect, which also had a good relationship with the Sky Pillar sect. When the sect master and chief disciple of the 6 He sect arrived at the star platform, Yun Yao and Ji Tianqing went to greet them. Other than that, they did not pay attention to the people from the other sections. When the night was dark and stars appeared in the sky, the sect masters and chief disciples of the 8 sects had all arrived. These 8 sects were the Sky Pillar sect, the Tianjian sect, the Heart Moon sect, the Thousand Autumns sect, and the 6 He sect. 16 people gathered on the star platform. After exchanging greetings in groups of 3 to 5 for a while, they all gathered at the center of the star platform. Chapter 250. At this moment, the starry patterns on the ground of the star platform lit up with silver starlight. The entire star platform was illuminated to the tiniest detail. It was dazzling with silver light, as if it was a dream. The star platform's array was activated and condensed into a huge circular light shield that enveloped the entire star platform. With the protection of the array, everyone was safe and confidential in the star platform. The contents of the meeting would not be leaked. Everyone gathered in the center of the star platform and sat down in 8 different directions. They bathed in the starlight and began the meeting. According to the usual practice, the Sky Pillar sect was the overlord of the heavenly stellar domain. Every 8 sect meeting was presided over by the Sky Pillar sect's sect master. However, Chu Tianxing did not attend this 8 sect meeting. The sect leaders all noticed this and looked at each other with complicated expressions. After a moment of silence, the Tianjian sect's sect master spoke first. He glanced at Yunyao and Ji Tianxing and said with a sneer, "He, Chu Tianxing has always attended the previous meetings. Why isn't he here this year? It's fine if he doesn't attend the meeting, but he actually sent 2 younger disciples to represent him. What is this? Is he looking down on our 7 great sects?" The sect masters of the other 4 sects also nodded in agreement. Their voices were filled with dissatisfaction and indignation. The Sky Pillar sect is getting more and more out of hand. They don't put us in their eyes at all. That's right. The 8 sect meeting, which is held every 2 years, is the most important meeting in the Star Ancient Realm. It is also the time for the 8 great sects to discuss important matters. How can Chu Tianxing be absent? Although the Sky Pillar sect is a 1,000-year-old sect and we are ashamed of our inferiority, the Sky Pillar sect can't humiliate us like this. Sect masters, we must ask Chu Tianxing for an explanation during the next 8 sect meeting. Yes. We must make Chu Tianxing give a reasonable explanation. Under the instigation of the Tianjian sect master, the sect masters were filled with righteous indignation and denounced the Sky Pillar sect and Chu Tianxing. Of course, Granny Shui Yu of the Heart Moon sect and the sect master of the 6 Unity sect did not speak about this matter. Ji Tianxing frowned as he looked at the Sky Sword sect master and the others expressionlessly, trying to figure out what was going on. After a while, when the sect leaders finished their discussion, Yunyao said expressionlessly, "Sect leaders, sect leader master is indeed busy and can't attend in person. As the chief disciple of our sect, I, Yunyao, brought junior brother Tianxing here to participate in the meeting. I can fully represent the sect master." She didn't explain too much. She only used 2 short sentences to shut the sect leaders up. Even though her seniority and status were a generation lower than those of the sect masters. However, her aura and the weight of her words were not weaker than any of the sect leaders. The Tianjian sect master didn't harp on the matter. He smiled playfully and said, "Since Chu Tianxing isn't here, I'll preside over this meeting. Does anyone have any objections?" The leaders of several sects hesitated for a moment before nodding in agreement. Granny Shui Yu and the sect leader of the 6 Unity sect wanted to object, but they didn't have the advantage in numbers, so they could only give up. The Tianjian sect master took control of the situation as he wished. With a dignified expression, he spoke in a solemn tone. "Everyone, in this meeting of the 8 sects, it is the fortune of the ancient star realm and the fortune of the Tianjin region for all the sect leaders to gather here and calmly discuss important matters. In this meeting, the first problem that everyone has to face is our common enemy, the remnants of the demon clan. Since the demon clan wreaked havoc in the Tianjin region 1,000 years ago, our region has been fortunate to have 1,000 years of peace. However, if the remnants of the demon clan are not eliminated, our Tianjin region will never have a day of peace. In the past 2 years, the remnants of the demon clan have become more and more rampant. They have frequently attacked and killed the disciples of various sects in the ancient realm. Fortunately, everyone has done their best to resist and encircle them, so they haven't caused a disaster. Since everyone is gathered here today, I hope that everyone can exchange information with each other. Have you received any information or clues recently?" After the Tianjian sect master finished speaking, all the sect leaders and chief disciples nodded in agreement and began to discuss in low voices. The damned demon clan is like an inexhaustible poisonous bug. That's right. We've already strictly guarded all the entrances to the ancient realm, but we still can't stop the invasion of the demon clan. The remnants of the demon clan are hiding in the ancient realm. From time to time, they'll jump out and attack the disciples of various sections. They're truly cruel and vicious. It's a pity that the demon clan's whereabouts are hidden. The ancient realm is too vast. Even if all the sects use all their strength, they won't be able to completely exterminate the demon clan. The remnants of the demon clan have fought with our 8 sects for 1,000 years. How could they be destroyed so easily? I think that this matter can only be defended for a long time. It'll be very difficult to completely eliminate them. After the sect leaders and chief disciples discussed for a while, a sect leader took the initiative to report a piece of news. Half a year ago, 3 disciples of our sect went missing for no apparent reason while training in the ancient realm. Later, we sent elders and deacons to investigate and confirm that it was the demon clan's doing. Several elders of our sect killed more than 20 demon clan guards. They also fought with the demon clan's high priest and demoness. The high priest is at the peak of the origin core stage and isn't far from the heaven origin stage. That demoness is only in her 20s and has already reached the origin core stage. She'll definitely become an even more terrifying opponent in the future. Another sect leader nodded and said, that demoness is called Blood Moon. She's the daughter of the Blood Demon King. Her innate talent is outstanding. She'll definitely become a great threat in the future. Following that, several other sect leaders spoke one after another. They'd all come into contact with the High Priest and Blood Moon Commandery Princess. They understood that the High Priest and Blood Moon Commandery Princess had some demon Dao methods, so they spoke of them to remind everyone to be careful. Ji Tianqing silently listened and couldn't help but frown. He discovered that those sects had little contact with the demon clan and had even fewer battles. They didn't have a deep understanding of the High Priest and Demoness. In comparison, the Sky Pillar sect was the demon clan's main target, so they had a better understanding of the demon clan situation. After the sect leaders finished speaking, Yun Yao said with a solemn expression, "Sect leaders, in the past 2 months, our sect has fought with the demon clan 3 times. Just last month, our sect discovered the demon clan's temporary stronghold. Not only were there the High Priest and Demoness, but there were also many demon clan guards hidden there. As for how many demons there are in the demon cave, it's still unclear for the time being." Upon hearing this news, the sect leaders all revealed gratified smiles. Oh. The whereabouts of the demon clan have always been mysterious. The Sky Pillar sect actually discovered the demon clan's stronghold. This is good news. The sects haven't been able to find the demon clan's hiding place. Now that we've found the demon clan's stronghold, we can easily eliminate the remaining demon clan members. Since we found the demon clan's stronghold, it's easy to handle. As long as the news is true, our sect can easily eliminate the remaining demon clan members. In the future, the ancient realm will be peaceful for a long time. Chapter 251. The demon race's forces weren't considered strong, and the 8 great sects all had the strength to single-handedly exterminate the demon race. However, the demon race's whereabouts had always been mysterious and difficult to find. It was very difficult to catch them all in one fell swoop. Since the Sky Pillar sect had discovered the demon race's stronghold, the Star Ancient Realm would soon be peaceful. However, the Tianjian sect master frowned and indifferently looked at Yun Yao, questioning her. "Yun Yao, this is only your side of the story. How can you make everyone believe you? Everyone has a deep understanding of the demon race's treachery and cunning. The sects have been fighting with the demon race for so many years, but they still haven't found the demon race's stronghold. How did you find it?" Hearing this, everyone quieted down. The sect masters also looked at Yun Yao, waiting for her explanation. Yunyao indifferently looked at the Tianjian sect master and calmly said, Tianjian sect master, does our sect have to report to you how we found the demon race's stronghold? In such a solemn meeting of the 8 great sects, how could I speak irresponsibly and give false information? Moreover, it doesn't matter if you believe this information or not. Even if your sect doesn't participate in the extermination of the demon race and doesn't send a single soldier, our sect can easily exterminate the demon race's remnants. The Tianjian sect master frowned slightly and didn't say anything else, withdrawing his cold gaze. In his heart, he secretly thought, "Humph, it's easy for you to say. If your Sky Pillar sect could really exterminate the demon race's remnants, why didn't you act earlier? Why wait until today? Although the demon race's remnants are weak, they have several supreme treasures of the demon Tao in their hands. When the Sky Pillar sect goes to exterminate the demon race's stronghold, they will certainly pay the price of casualties. If the Sky Pillar sect's people suffer heavy casualties, it's exactly what this king wants. This king is waiting for both the Sky Pillar sect and the demon race to suffer. Why would I send people to help?" Thinking of this, the Tianjian sect master fell silent and indifferently looked at the stars in the sky, as if this matter had nothing to do with him. The star platform fell into silence as the sect masters expressionlessly pondered. Although it was the common task of the 8 sects to exterminate the remnants of the devil race and maintain the peace of the ancient star realm, it was still the same task. However, in the operation to exterminate the demon race, they would definitely pay the price of casualties. The several sect leaders had to weigh the gains and losses, and would not rashly participate in this matter. At this time, Granny Shueiyue said with a solemn expression, "Exterminating the remnants of the devil race is the common responsibility of our 8 sections. Our Heart Moon sect naturally won't stay out of it. Yunyao, when your sect decides to take action, this old one will also send a few elite disciples to assist you." Yunyao immediately bowed to Granny Shueiyue and said, "Granny, you are wise and righteous. Yunyao thanks you." Granny Shueiyue's wrinkled old face revealed a kind smile. She nodded and said, "Yunyao, you don't need to be so polite. It's our sect's duty to exterminate the remnants of the demon race." Following her words, the sect leader of 6 He sect also said solemnly, "In the past 10 years, the remnants of the demon race have attacked and killed dozens of our sect's disciples and destroyed one of our sect's spirit veins. This time, our sect will definitely participate in the operation to exterminate the remnants of the demon race and avenge our dead disciples. Yunyao, on the day when your sect takes action, our sect will also send out a few experts to help you." Yunyao bowed to the sect leader of 6 He sect again to express her gratitude. Seeing this scene, the other 4 sect leaders also looked at each other and secretly exchanged opinions. Finally, another tall and burly old man with grizzled hair stood up and said in a solemn tone, "My Pill Cauldron sect would also like to contribute our meager strength. We will use the heads of the remnants of the demon race as a sacrifice to our sect's disciples who were killed by the demon race." Yunyao bowed to the sect leader of Pill Tripod sect again to express her gratitude. However, after that, no one spoke again. The Tianjian sect leader and the other 3 sect leaders sat upright with their eyes and noses lowered. Their expressions were calm and indifferent, and they had no intention of helping. Yunyao knew very well that the other 3 sects had close ties with the Tianjian sect, so it was normal for them to have such a reaction. She ignored the Tianjian sect leader and the other 3 sect leaders and began to discuss the operation with Granny Shueiyue, the sect leader of 6 He sect, and the sect leader of Pill Tripod sect. "Granny Shueiyue, sect leader Yan, sect leader Qi, thank you for your help. Tomorrow, I will send a message to our sect and send someone to investigate the stronghold of the demon race. After confirming that the remnants of the demon race haven't moved their stronghold, we will prepare to take action." Sect leader Yan of 6 He sect nodded slightly and said with a smile, "That's good. The demon race has always been cunning. I'm afraid that they will escape when they hear the news and make our trip in vain." Sect leader Qi of Pill Tripod sect stroked the gray beard on his chin and nodded. Yun Yao, I believe in your ability. You will be in charge of this operation. When you are about to take action, I will send a few experts to listen to your orders and arrangements. Granny Shui Yu also showed a kind smile and nodded. That's right. You can rest assured that Yun Yao will be in charge of this. I will send a few elite disciples to assist you. As for when we will take action and the specific plan of this operation, we will contact each other when the time comes. Yun Yao, Sect Leader Yen, and Sect Leader Qi all nodded and agreed to Granny Shui Yu's proposal. The matter was settled, and the four of them quieted down. After a while, the Tianjin sect leader saw that Yun Yao and the others had finished their discussion, and then he announced the second matter in a loud voice. The mission of eliminating the remnants of the demon race will be completed by the Sky Pillar Sect, Sixi Sect, Heart Moon Sect, and Pill Tripod Sect. I look forward to your triumphant return as soon as possible, completely eliminate the remnants of the demon race, and return peace to the ancient star realm. Next, I will announce an important matter. This matter concerns the fate of our 8 great sects and the entire Tianjin region. The Tianjin sect leader's voice spread throughout the entire star platform. His tone was solemn and serious. Everyone quieted down and looked at him with a solemn expression. The sect leaders clearly knew the news and guessed what he was going to announce, so they all sat there expressionlessly. The Tianjin sect leader said in a low voice, as everyone knows, the billions of humans in the 9 regions of the southern land can prosper and live on the continent under the protection of the Imperial Court of Middle Ground. The Imperial Emperor is not only the strongest person of our race, but also the guardian of our human race. With the protection of the Imperial Court, we can fight against the demon race as equals. At this point, the Tianjin sect leader bowed towards the north with a solemn and pious expression. The other sect leaders also stood up and bowed towards the northern night sky, paying their respects to the Imperial Emperor from afar. The Tianjin sect leader said in a solemn tone, 20 years ago, the Imperial Emperor and the Empress gave birth to a son. He is the Emperor of our race. The Emperor was born extraordinary, like the reincarnation of a god. At the age of 20, he reached the divine origin stage. Such extraordinary aptitude is truly rare in the past and present. Hearing this, the chief disciples of the various sects were shocked and full of respect. Only Yun Yao and Ji Tianqing's expressions remained unchanged, as calm as ever. After a while, the Tianjin sect leader continued, now, the emperor has reached the age of marriage. The imperial emperor has decided to let the emperor get married next year. Not long ago, the imperial court of middle ground issued an edict to choose a heavenly consort for the emperor from the 9 regions of the southern land. Only a talented and beautiful girl with extraordinary talent in martial arts is worthy of the emperor's noble status. In the 9 regions of the southern land, only the number 1 genius of each region is qualified to compete for the position of heavenly consort. However, 6 of the 9 top geniuses are men, and only 3 are women. The number 1 on the star list of our region, the chief disciple of the Sky Pillar sect, Yun Yao, is one of the 3 women. Chapter 252. Everyone respected the middle ground imperial court as if they were gods, and they revered the emperor even more. Not only did the emperor have a noble status and unparalleled power, but he also had a godlike martial talent. Although the chief disciples present were all geniuses, they were all inferior to the emperor. But compared to Tianzi, everyone was as insignificant as mud worms, not worth mentioning. When they heard that the emperor was going to choose a heavenly consort and that Yun Yao had a high chance of becoming a heavenly consort, the chief disciples were filled with envy and jealousy. Some of the male disciples even wished they could become women and replace Yun Yao to compete for the heavenly consort position. The Tianjin sect master also looked at Yun Yao and said calmly, "Everyone knows that after the emperor abdicates, the emperor will inherit the throne and become our emperor. And the emperor's heavenly consort will also become our empress. That's the mother of the world, the supreme position that dominates the four seas. If Yunyao can become a heavenly consort, not only will she become the empress in the future, but our Tianshan region will also be taken care of by the imperial court and become the most powerful region among the 9 regions. The other sect leaders also looked expectant and nodded their heads in agreement. The sect master of the true martial sect was wearing a purple robe and looked like a middle-aged scholar. He even held a white jade fan in his hand. He gently waved the fan in his hand and looked at Yunyao with a calm expression. He said slowly, "The decree issued by the monarch is like the will of the heavens to my clan. No one can defy it. Yunyao, the emperor wants to choose a heavenly consort. He will definitely choose from you and the other 2 girls. I've heard about the other 2 geniuses. They are both talented and beautiful. Their talents are not inferior to yours. If you want to become a heavenly consort, you have to work harder and perform well to win the emperor's favor." Yunyao looked indifferent. She looked at the sect master of the true martial sect calmly and said, "Yunyao naturally does not dare to defy the emperor's decree. However, Yunyao is devoted to Tao and will never talk about love." Her meaning was clear. She could not disobey the decree of the human race's imperial emperor. She could only accept the emperor's selection with the other 2 genius women. However, she wholeheartedly pursued the peak of martial arts. She would never take the initiative to show off and win the favor of the emperor. She also did not want to be some heavenly concubine. The expressions of the true martial sect master and the other sect masters changed slightly. Surprise flashed through their eyes. At this moment, the sect leader of the Wind-Fire sect stood up. This person had a thin figure, a dark and old-fashioned face, and his entire body emanated a noble and dignified aura. He frowned and looked at Yunyao with shining eyes. He said indifferently, "Yunyao, the son of heaven is a dragon among men. If you can become the heavenly consort, it will be a great fortune and blessing. This is the dream of so many women. How can you be so ignorant?" The true martial sect master also said with a dignified expression, "Yunyao, you're the #1 genius of the Tianshan region, and you've been praised and admired by the martial artists of the 10 nations for the past few years. You can be said to be glorious and unparalleled. It's time for you to make some contributions to the heavenly stellar region. As long as you become the heavenly consort, you can make the heavenly stellar region prosper and dominate. Besides, if you become the heavenly consort, it will be a joyous occasion for the entire heavenly stellar region in the Sky Pillar sect." Afterwards, the sect master of the Thousand Autumns sect also persuaded Yunyao to do her best and strive to become the heavenly consort. Faced with the persuasion and pressure of the sect masters, Yunyao frowned slightly, feeling a little annoyed. However, the sect masters spoke in a dignified manner and made it sound like a sacred matter that concerned the fate of the heavenly stellar region, making it difficult for her to refute and refuse. Helpless, she had no choice but to bow to the sect masters and say in an indifferent tone, "Sect masters, this matter is of great importance and Yunyao can't make the decision. I have to go back and ask the sect master." Seeing this scene, Ji Tianqing frowned and secretly thought, no wonder the sect master used the excuse that he had something important to attend to and didn't attend this meeting. So that's the reason. The sect master must have long known about the selection of the emperor's consort, and he also knows that eldest senior sister definitely won't agree. It's inconvenient for him to express his opinion, and he can't force eldest senior sister to agree. If he attends this meeting, he will definitely be caught in the middle and find it difficult to choose. He might as well not come. Previously, he couldn't figure out why Chu Tianxing would let him and Yunyao attend the meeting. Now, he finally understood. The Tianjian sect master could tell that Yunyao was being perfunctory, but he was still very opposed to this matter. He raised his eyebrows and walked to the center of the hall with a dignified expression. He said righteously, "Yunyao, as the saying goes, the greater the ability, the greater the responsibility. You are the #1 genius of the heavenly stellar region, so you should work hard to fight for the position of heavenly consort for the heavenly stellar region. This is both your responsibility and your obligation. The Sky Pillar sect spent countless efforts to nurture you into the number one genius. Shouldn't you repay the Sky Pillar sect? As long as you become the heavenly consort, you can make the Sky Pillar sect soar. For the hundreds of millions of people in the Sky Pillar sect and the heavenly stellar region, you must become the heavenly consort. Ji Tianqing looked at the Tianjian sect master's sanctimonious face. He was using the Sky Pillar sect and the heavenly stellar region to force Yun Yao to agree to fight for the position of heavenly consort. The anger in his heart grew stronger and stronger. When the other sect leaders took turns to persuade Yun Yao earnestly, he finally could not hold back his anger and stood up abruptly. What a profound and righteous principle! How hypocritical and laughable! He sneered with disdain, and the star platform fell into silence. The sect masters and chief disciples all looked at him. He ignored everyone's surprised gazes and stared at the Tianjian sect master. He sneered and said in a cold tone, I've learned something today. Senior sister Yun Yao has already made it very clear that she wholeheartedly pursues the peak of martial arts. She doesn't want to be the heavenly consort, nor does she want to climb up the social ladder. But the sect masters keep threatening and tempting her to become the heavenly consort. You even pretended to be righteous and said that it was for the sake of the Sky Pillar sect and the people of the heavenly stellar region. I think it's for your future, right? You want to soar and make the sect prosper, but you want senior sister Yun Yao to make sacrifices and force her to do something she doesn't want to do. Why? What right do you have to criticize her? And he even put on a righteous face. If you want to be the heavenly consort so much, why don't you go yourself? Ji Tianqing said a lot of things in one go, which immediately stunned everyone. His words were very sharp, and he mercilessly exposed the true faces of the sect masters and revealed their true intentions. The expressions of the Tianjian sect master and the other sect masters changed, and a sharp and cold light flashed in their eyes. The Tianjian sect master's face darkened, and he looked at Ji Tianqing coldly and sternly. He shouted in a dignified tone, "Boy, who do you think you are? You don't have the right to speak here. Moreover, the matter of selecting the heavenly consort is the emperor's decree. No one can disobey it." Chapter 253. The atmosphere in the room was a little tense. The attitude of the heavenly sword sect master and the other sect masters was truly overbearing. Ji Tianqing stepped forward in righteous indignation and spoke up for Yun Yao. Unfortunately, his words carried little weight, and the sect masters didn't take his words to heart. Seeing this, Grandma Shui Yu hurriedly stood up and tried to smooth things over with a kind expression. "Sect masters, please listen to this old woman. This news is very sudden for Yun Yao. She definitely isn't ready yet. Sect Master Chu isn't here and can't help her make a decision. It's useless for you to persuade her." She tapped the jade walking stick in her hand and said with a serious expression, "This matter will end here for the time being. It won't be too late to make a decision after Yun Yao goes back and discusses it with Sect Master Chu. I believe that with Yun Yao and Sect Master Chu's wisdom, they will definitely make a wise decision." "Yes, that's right." The sect master of the Six Harmonies sect nodded slightly in agreement. The Tianjian sect master and the other sect masters didn't say anything else. Everyone tacitly agreed with Grandma Shui Yu's opinion. Next, everyone discussed some matters related to the situation in the ancient realm of the stars. 4 hours later, everyone had finished what they needed to say and what they needed to discuss. The Tianjian sect master loudly announced that this session of the meeting would end here. It was late at night. The night sky was filled with bright stars, and the bright moon shone down 1,000 feet of silver light. After the meeting ended, several sect leaders led their disciples to bid farewell to the crowd and left the star platform. However, a few sect masters stayed behind. They either admired the stars in the sky on the star platform, or gathered together to discuss something in low voices. Yun Yao and Ji Tianqing naturally wouldn't stay. They weren't in the mood to admire the stars, moon, and scenery. The two of them bowed to Grandma Shuiyu, Sect Master Yan, and Sect Master Qi before leaving the star platform on their spirit cranes. The spirit cranes sped through the night sky, heading straight back to the Sky Pillar sect. Yun Yao and Ji Tianqing stood side by side on the back of the spirit crane. Their expressions were cold and solemn. Both of them were silent as they stared at the night sky in front of them, both lost in their own thoughts. After a long while, Yun Yao turned to look at Ji Tianqing and said with a somewhat complicated tone, "Junior brother Tianqing, you are usually calm and reserved. Why did you suddenly stand out tonight and scold those sect leaders furiously? Aren't you worried that those sect masters will vent their anger on you because of this?" In fact, when Ji Tianqing stood up for her and spoke up for her, denouncing the Tianjin sect master and the other sect leaders, she was touched and worried for Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing shook his head and said with a calm expression, "The Tianjin sect master and those sect leaders are pretending to be benevolent and righteous. It's disgusting. They are so aggressive and forced eldest senior sister to do something you don't want to do. Of course I can't sit idly by and do nothing. I only want to scold them in my righteous anger. Why would I care so much?" Yun Yao's clear eyes stared at him. Her tone was calm, but her expression was serious. She asked, "You don't want me to be a heavenly consort either, right?" "Of course." Ji Tianqing nodded without hesitation. After he finished speaking, he came back to his senses. He faintly felt that Yun Yao's words had a deeper meaning. He saw that Yun Yao's clear eyes seemed to contain a strange color. His heart suddenly skipped a beat. He hurriedly turned his head away and stopped looking at her deep eyes. He pretended to be calm as he looked forward and explained. "Eldest senior sister, you are obsessed with martial arts. This is something everyone knows. You have your own choices and your own path to walk. Of course you won't be at the mercy of others. The Tianjin sect master and those sect leaders are all selfish hypocrites. They actually want you to sacrifice yourself for the benefit of their respective sects. How hateful." And Yun Yao only responded and nodded. She didn't say anything else. After that, the two of them fell silent and stopped talking about this matter. 12 hours later, it was noon the next day. The spirit crane finally returned to the Sky Pillar sect. Yun Yao and Ji Tianqing rushed straight to Qishao Peak. They landed outside the Sky Pillar Palace and entered the main hall together. The guards guarding the entrance of the main hall hurriedly came forward and greeted the two of them. Yun Yao said that she wanted to see the sect leader and that she had something important to report. The guard turned around and entered the hall to report the news. The two of them entered the Sky Pillar Palace and waited in the main hall for a while before Chu Tianqing walked in and sat on the sect leader's throne. Disciple greets sect leader master. Yun Yao and Ji Tianqing hurriedly bowed to Chu Tianqing. Chu Tianqing nodded slightly and asked with a dignified expression, "The meeting ended so quickly? What did the 8 sects discuss when they gathered?" Yun Yao hurriedly reported the plan to eliminate the remaining demons to Chu Tianqing in detail. After Chu Tianqing finished listening, he nodded and said, "That's good too. The remaining demons have been entrenched in the ancient realm for too long. It's time to eliminate them as soon as possible. The Tianjin sect and those other sects all have dirty thoughts and are unwilling to participate in the operation. This is something that I have long expected. Since the Heart Moon sect, Sixi sect, and Pill Cauldron sect all want to participate, then according to what they said, Yun Yao, you will be in charge of the operation this time. You must make thorough arrangements." Yun Yao bowed and said calmly, "Disciple understands." Chu Tianqing was silent for a moment. He stared at Yun Yao and Ji Tianqing and asked in a deep voice, "Other than the operation to eliminate the demons, that matter, you already know about it, right?" Yun Yao and Ji Tianqing both nodded. Chu Tianqing asked Yun Yao, what do you plan to do with this matter? Yun Yao cupped her hands and said firmly, disciple only wants to pursue the peak of martial arts. I have no intention to talk about marriage. Chu Tianqing nodded and revealed an expression that said, as expected. He was Yun Yao's master. Of course, he understood Yun Yao's nature and had already guessed that Yun Yao would not agree. He frowned and said in a serious tone, Yun Yao, regarding the matter of the emperor choosing a wife, master will not make a decision for you, nor will I force you. This matter is entirely up to you. However, master needs to tell you about the situation between the Tianxian continent and the central state. At this point, Chu Tianqing's tone became serious and deep. He said slowly, there are 5 major regions in the Tianxian continent. They are the East, West, North, South, and the Central State. The Central State is the core of the continent and the most prosperous place. It is controlled by the 4 great imperial courts. The 4 great imperial emperors are the strongest and leaders of each race. The 4 great imperial emperors are the Southern Human Emperor, the Eastern Water Emperor, the Northern Demon Emperor, and the Western Goblin Emperor. The south of the continent is the territory of the human clan. There are 9 major regions, hundreds of kingdoms, tens of thousands of sects and forces, and hundreds of millions of people. Chapter 254. Before this, Ji Tianqing had read history books and had some understanding of the situation in the Tianxian continent. However, the history books only introduced the 4 great imperial courts and the 4 great imperial emperors. It was not detailed enough. Now that he heard Chu Tianqing's explanation, he had a clearer understanding of the situation in the continent. Chu Tianqing continued, to the east of the continent is the endless Eastern Sea. The Eastern Sea and the Eastern Sea are both occupied by the Water Clan. The Flood Dragon Clan is the emperor and leader of the Water Clan. In the ancient times, before the human imperial court was established, the Eastern Water Clan kept on expanding to the south. They once wantonly invaded our territory and massacred billions of people. Fortunately, the human imperial emperor appeared out of nowhere and established the human imperial court. He led the human army to resist the Water Clan's invasion and drove them back to the east. Today, after almost 10,000 years, the Water Clan and our clan are divided and do not invade each other. This is all thanks to the human imperial court. Pausing, he looked deeply to the north and said in a heavy tone, the demon clan in the north is even more savage and bloodthirsty. They are ambitious and want to escape from the bitter cold in the north. In the ancient times, the demon clan roamed everywhere. They burned, killed, and plundered all over the continent. Especially us humans are the weakest and the most oppressed by the demon clan. It is because of the imperial court's protection and resistance that the demon clan that fled to the south was exterminated. They were forced to retreat to the north and continue to hide in the bitter cold. If not for the imperial court's protection, I am afraid our clan would have been completely exterminated by the demon clan. Today, our clan still has a blood feud with the demon clan. There are still demons causing trouble in our territory. As for the west of the continent, it is a chaotic place where hundreds of clans gather. Only the demon clan is the strongest and leads the hundreds of other clans. Now it is a peaceful time. The demon clan and our clan can live peacefully. This is also due to the imperial court's contribution and prestige. In the ancient times, the demon clan's persecution and killing of our clan was second only to the demon clan. Therefore, in the history books of the human race, there is no distinction between demons, and they are treated equally. After listening to Chu Tianqing's narration, Ji Tianqing had a deeper understanding of the situation in the profound sky continent and the prestige of the central continent imperial court. He nodded and said in a heavy tone, in that case, in the ancient times, our human race lived in an abyss of suffering and was bullied and harmed by other races. Chu Tianqing nodded slightly and said seriously, of course. It is also because of this that the Central Continent Imperial Court is the leader of our race. The past imperial emperors are the protectors of our race. Their statuses are so high that they are close to that of gods. At this point, Chu Tianqing was silent for a while and looked at Yun Yao with burning eyes. However, Yun Yao did not have any reaction. Her expression was still cold and indifferent. No matter how sacred the monarch's position was, or how noble the Son of Heaven's identity was, she was indifferent. Chu Tianqing saw Yun Yao's firm attitude, so he didn't say anything more. He just said in a serious tone, "Yun Yao, that's all I have to say. Think about it yourself. You can't disobey the imperial emperor's orders. You and the other two geniuses will be selected by the imperial court and the emperor. If you don't want to become the imperial concubine, then let nature take its course. No matter what the final result is, it's fate." His words could be considered as the final conclusion of this matter. Yun Yao immediately bowed and said, "Thank you, master." Chu Tianqing nodded and stopped talking about this matter. At this time, Ji Tianqing cupped his hands and asked, "Master, how is the situation in the Dragon Mountain ancient tomb?" At the mention of this matter, Chu Tianqing frowned and shook his head. "Yesterday, I went to the Dragon Mountain ancient tomb to take a look. The Tianyuan formation is indeed extraordinary. It far surpasses all the Tianyuan formations in the Tianshan region. Its complexity and power are rare. Even the Grand Elder and I are helpless against that Tianyuan formation. We can't break it at all." Ji Tianqing had already guessed that this would be the result, so he was not surprised. He raised his eyebrows and asked in a deep voice, "Master, even our sect can't break that formation. Doesn't that mean that no one in the Tianshan region can break it? How will our sect deal with it?" Chu Tianqing nodded slightly and said in a serious tone, "Even if no one can break that formation for the time being, Dragon Mountain is our sect's territory. That ancient tomb also belongs to our sect. Several elders will still stay in Dragon Mountain to guard that ancient tomb and continue to study and investigate. I believe that with the wisdom of our sect's many array masters, they will be able to break that formation sooner or later." Hearing this, Ji Tianqing knew what was going on and did not ask any more. Chu Tianqing also waved his hand and said to the two, "If there's nothing else to report, you can leave and rest. Yun Yao, you have to plan and deploy the operation to eliminate the demons. No matter how many people you need, you can mobilize them from our sect." Disciple obeys. Yun Yao bowed, then said goodbye to Ji Tianqing and left the hall. After walking out of the heaven-raising hall, the two stood in the square outside the hall and stopped at the same time. Yun Yao looked at Ji Tianqing and said with a gentle expression, "Junior brother Tianqing, you can go back and rest first. I'll send someone to investigate the situation in the demon cave first. After the news is confirmed, we'll start the operation. This matter can't be rushed. We can only leave in 3 days at the earliest. I'll send you a message at that time." Ji Tianqing nodded and cupped his hands to say goodbye. Then, he turned and left. After returning to Tianqing's courtyard, he said a few words to his maid, Xiao Shuang, and went straight to the secret chamber to cultivate in seclusion. The series of events that had happened recently had made him feel a lot of pressure in his heart. He was eager to improve his strength. The most important thing was the duel with Bai Wuchen in the Heaven List tournament next month. He only had more than a month left. He had to do his best to improve his strength to have a good chance of winning. After entering the secret chamber, he sat cross-legged in the spirit-gathering array. He took out 2 5-colored spiritual stones and held them in his palms. Then, he started to cultivate. Ever since he had obtained over 100 spirit stones, he had discovered that spirit stones had unimaginable benefits for cultivation. The spiritual qi contained in the spiritual stones was very rich and pure. There were no impurities. He could directly absorb it and refine it into his own true core strength. Using the spiritual stones to cultivate was more efficient than taking elixirs. Soon, Ji Tianqing absorbed the spiritual qi in the spiritual stones. The spiritual qi ran quickly in the 9 sword veins in his body and turned into true core strength. With the help of the spiritual stones, he started to refine the acupuncture points on the 2nd sword vein. When he entered the state of cultivation, he was not aware of the passage of time. He was fully focused on the sword vein and acupuncture points. Unknowingly, 2 days had passed. Ji Tianqing successfully refined an acupuncture point, making it wider and tougher. It could store a large amount of true core strength. Chapter 255. That night, Ji Tianqing ended his cultivation and walked out of the secret chamber. Xiao Shuang, the maidservant, was waiting outside the door. When she saw him coming out, she quickly reported the news. Senior brother Ji, eldest senior sister sent a message this afternoon. She said that we'll depart tomorrow morning. She'll wait for you at the usual place. The usual place? Ji Tianqing was stunned for a moment. Then, a smile flashed in his eyes. In the few months since he entered the Sky Pillar sect, he had gone out with Yunyao a few times. They had met at the square at the foot of the Sky Pillar peak. Of course, he could guess that the usual place that Yunyao mentioned was the square at the foot of the Sky Pillar peak. All right, I got it. You may leave. Ji Tianqing waved his hand. After Xiao Shuang left, he returned to his room to rest and prepare for tomorrow's operation. Although Yunyao was in charge of planning and deploying the demon-slaying mission, he had to be fully prepared. The night passed by quickly. The next morning, Ji Tianqing left the Tianqing courtyard and went down the Sky Pillar peak. When he arrived at the square at the foot of the mountain, he saw a huge spirit crane standing on the square. Yunyao was standing on the back of the spirit crane, waiting quietly. Next to the spirit crane was a huge red bear. On the back of the bear sat a burly man who was as strong as an iron tower. This man was the elite disciple, Hao Meng. He was riding the fiery red bear and carrying a huge red sword on his back. Other than Yunyao and Hao Meng, there were 10 inner court disciples in white robes accompanying them. These inner court disciples were all powerful. Their strength was around the 5th level of the mystic enlightening realm. 2 days ago, Yunyao had spread the news in the inner court that she would lead a team to annihilate the stronghold of the demon clan. Many inner court disciples eagerly signed up for the mission after hearing the news. Yunyao picked these 10 people out of the many disciples who signed up. In this operation, they could contribute to the annihilation of the demon clan and receive rewards from the sect. It could be said that they were killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Seeing that Ji Tianqing had arrived at the square, the 10 inner disciples silently sized him up with complicated expressions. Everyone in the Sky Pillar sect knew that he had issued a letter of challenge to Bai Wuchen. Everyone had different opinions about this matter. However, these 10 inner disciples clearly believed that Ji Tianqing would win without a doubt. They didn't think highly of him. Of course, Ji Tianqing was the head disciple after all. Even if they talked behind his back, they didn't dare to show any contempt and ridicule in front of him. Eldest senior sister. Senior brother Hao. Ji Tianqing came to the front of the crowd and bowed to Yunyao and Hao Meng with cupped fists. Yunyao nodded slightly in response. Hao Meng also cupped his hands in return and nodded. All right, now that everyone is here, let's go. Yunyao said solemnly. Ji Tianqing jumped onto the back of the spirit crane and walked to Yunyao's side. Seeing this scene, the 10 inner disciples' expressions changed slightly. Envy and jealousy flashed in their eyes as they cursed in their hearts. After that, Yunyao rode the spirit crane and carried Ji Tianqing into the sky, leaving the Sky Pillar sect. Hao Meng rode the crimson flame violent bear and led the 10 inner disciples on horseback on the ground. The spirit crane flew high in the sky. Ji Tianqing and Yunyao stood side by side and looked ahead calmly. No one could disturb them. Ji Tianqing then asked Yunyao, eldest senior sister, where are the people from the Heart Moon sect, 6 He sect, and Pill Tripod sect. Are we going directly to the demon cave? Yunyao shook her head gently and explained, I've already sent people to investigate. The demon clan is still entrenched in that demon cave. However, the demon clan seems to be on guard. We can't meet near the demon cave to avoid alerting them. I've already sent a message to the people from the 3 sects and arranged to meet at the Gourd Mountain. It's still 200 miles away from the demon cave and won't be discovered by the demon clan. Ji Tianqing nodded repeatedly and smiled. I knew that you had a plan and arrangement, eldest senior sister. No wonder the leaders of the 3 sects trust you so much and let you command this operation. Yunyao only nodded slightly and didn't say anything. Both of them were silent as they stared ahead and watched the spirit crane cross thousands of mountains and rivers. About 4 hours later, the sun was high up in the sky. The spirit crane finally arrived at the Gourd Mountain and landed on a grassland at the peak of the mountain. Ji Tianqing and Yunyao jumped off the spirit crane and stood on the grassland to wait for half an hour before Hao Meng and the 10 inner disciples arrived one after another. Hao Meng rode the crimson flame violent bear and could barely keep up with the spirit crane's speed. The 10 inner disciples were all riding chasing wind horses. It was still all right for them to travel on flat ground, but they were much inferior when it came to crossing mountains and ridges. Everyone, rest here. We'll wait here for the people from the 3 sects to meet up. Yunyao gave the order. All the disciples got off their horses and sat on the grassland to rest and recover their strength. Time passed quickly and an hour passed quickly. At this time, a huge green bird flew from the sky to the top of the mountain. It circled around the mountain before landing. Ji Tianqing recognized that the huge green bird was the spirit beast green bird. In terms of bloodline grade and strength, it was almost on par with Yunyao's spirit crane. A dignified and elegant white-robed woman stood on the green bird as if she had walked out of a painting. She was the top disciple of the Heart Moon sect. Feng Min. Ji Tianqing had met her on the star platform before. Feng Min jumped down from the back of the green bird and walked toward Yunyao and Ji Tianqing elegantly. When she was near, a smile appeared on her beautiful face. She bowed slightly and said, Senior sister Yunyao, Feng Min is late. Yunyao also bowed slightly and returned the greeting. Subsequently, Feng Min greeted Hao Meng and Ji Tianqing. Not long after, a group of white-robed women rode the spirit beast wildebeest up the mountain and arrived beside everyone. There were a total of 9 young women in this group. Although they each had their own merits, their temperament was gentle and elegant. They exuded the simple and elegant aura that only the Heart Moon sect's disciples had. After Feng Min's introduction, everyone found out that the group of 9 white-robed women were the inner disciples of the Heart Moon sect. 2 of them were elite geniuses whose strength had reached level 7 of the mystic comprehending stage. The other 7 were outstanding inner disciples whose strength was around level 5 of the mystic comprehending stage. After exchanging pleasantries, everyone continued to wait. Another 2 hours passed and it was noon when the people from the 6 He sect arrived. The leader was the top disciple of the 6 He sect. He brought 9 inner disciples with him and all of them were strong. The people from the Elixir Tripod sect finally arrived in the afternoon. After all, the Elixir Tripod sect was quite far from here. Even if they started their journey at dawn, they would still have to travel for 8 hours continuously. There were also 10 people from the Elixir Tripod sect. The leader was also the top disciple of the sect. Ji Tianqing had seen this person on the star platform before. After everyone from the 3 sects had arrived, more than 40 mystic comprehending stage martial artists gathered on the grassland on the mountain peak. They were all young disciples from various sections. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.